just arranged, and I lose my way. Like everyone has their start, the middle of May. But all right, here we go. Here we go, folks. Welcome. Welcome. Hopefully, we got this August 20. It's obviously not August 20, it's August 21, 2026 video. I don't know. At this point in time, it's almost too painful not to do this just because it's become a tradition for so long. So long. So it's like, if nothing else, I like doing these for the old journal. For the old journal, you know? Why did that not put anything? Oh, there we go. For the old journal, if you will. All right. So basically, what we got here, let's close this. Let's close this. Okay. Basically, for the old journal at this point in time, if nothing else, I can just kind of keep these going just so I can keep them for the old journal. All right. August 20. Actually, let me close this. Got to, I had to make sure that I had the wasn't ripping the three brothers here in the background here. Close this. We can share this. For those, who aren't familiar with the process or what we do here. So what I started doing, man, I don't know, 2020? I think the very first one was 6 years ago. So this will be the number 6. I think the first one I did this was in 2020s, and it was called August 20, 2020. And basically, we just did a rundown. We just talked about what was going on, what family updates going on in the world, the macro last day timeline, how things looked, what was going on, across the board, any updates that need to be made. It's funny, though, back in August of 2020, there was a lot more, questions. It was like a perfect storm, man. It was almost like a desolating sickness. It was almost like a perfect storm, desolating sickness, wake up call, kind of like besieging of Jerusalem was a perfect wake up call and the sign for the abomination of desolation to come. It was almost something like that, and it woke a ton of saints up because it wasn't even just the COVID stuff. It was also President Nelson. President Nelson came. I mean, he was firing from both barrels, man. He was very aggressive in his, like, we need to prepare the world for the Savior second coming. And it just created this perfect storm where people were like, wait, what's going on? Are we in the end times? Like, what's going on? And so you'd have a lot of people coming and showing up and asking questions. And some of it was really good. Some of it was, like really edifying. And it was like really good to be able to get people's questions and we could talk about stuff. Some of it was also just, spazzy good, like when if it wasn't for videos like that, I would never have met Ammon and Topher. Like they called in on one of those events. And also there was just some just bad stuff that would occur with these things too, right? People coming in with all sorts of weird ideas, like we're in the seventh seal and the Jews are in Jerusalem killing or something with building a temple in the red heifer, and it's like these are just really ungrounded, unpyramided truth things, and you'd have to be like, no, that's not accurate. Here's why. And then you get these fights, and people, oh, you think you're so much smarter. Like, why do you think you have all the answers? And so man, it was just a fluid thing, man, where it was really exciting and really cool. But it it had its pros and cons. These days, there's a lot less people that are like that. People have, which will get, I guess, into when we talk about these things. Things have become a lot more balkanized. People have found their tribe, if you will, just like in the Book of Mormon, right? They became balkanized. They went into their own tribes. They had their own little leaders, and they just didn't want to leave their little groups. We're a lot more balkanized. We've kind of agreed on the priestcraft that we're okay with and that we like, and basically we're done asking questions about the signs of the times or any things like that. In fact, I would almost go as far as to say that you shut your mouth and stop talking about end time stuff, right? It's almost won out once again in the culture of the church. People aren't really interested in talking about it. You try to bring it up with your friends or God forbid, a Sunday school class or a priesthood class, and it's kind of like, oh, you're fear mongering. And it's like, we're not trying to fear monger. This is exciting stuff. It's cool. But that's kind of permeated the culture to such a degree that that's pretty much shut down. Most of the people who kind of talk, like signs of the times, end day, last stuff now are mostly all, well, unless somebody can introduce me to something that isn't, they're all I've seen is priestcraft clickbaity stuff, nothing like, hey, let's break down more scriptures, let's talk about points of reference, like those people are completely obliterated from the space. They just don't exist. Now you just have like, these AI generated thumbnails where it's like President Nelson, this could be the change that brings us to Adamonte. And people are like, whoa! And then you click on it, and it's just some priest crafter being like, do you see this crystal Jesus sitting on my desk? If you thought, wow, that's awesome, you'd be right. It's awesome, and it could be yours for $230. Click the link, 10% off. And now let's read this article that just came out that's literally 3 lines and that has absolutely nothing to do with the clickbait thumbnail that I just did. And let's speculate and just meander through the woods of completely pointless talk until I'll end with more Priestcraft ads and sponsors and some terms and conditions may apply to the end, like nothing I said means anything, and who knows what I even just read, and then it ends. Like that's all you're gonna get now. That's all you're gonna get. And so like, this is basically turned into a video now where it's basically a journal entry. Where are we in 2026? What's happened in the last year? What's going on? How are things looking? What's moving forward for me and maybe us, whoever is left, 100 of us, 200 of us, 500 of us that are left that are actually curious about this stuff and that are my friends and my family that are doing this. With that said, though, I'm gonna have to be, and please, if there's anybody listening live, okay, there's a few people listening live, please help me because I need to be very careful when recording this because there has been once again problems in my life with there's only like I said, there's only like 500 of us that really do this, and we have been around and friends with each other now for like 6, 7 years, some of us. And so there's a lot of inside jokes. There's a lot of inside baseball where we'll say things and we all understand each other. Like we all understand each other. But I will say things and I'll say things like, pudgy priestcraft holders, with unrighteous dominion who really want their Ford Broncos. I'll say something like that and people locally in my life will hear that and go, "Oh, he must be talking about me," and then they punish me without warning or anything like that. And all of you understand he's talking about himself, right? Like you all understand that I'm the pudgy priesthood holder that wants the Ford Bronco, right? Like we all understand like what you all understand what I'm saying, right? Like I'm not actually calling anybody else out or doing any of that. You all understand that who I'm talking about, what I'm talking about. We're also engaged in multiple threads in Discord where we all understand the priestcraft that I'm talking about. When I talk about the priestcraft cabal, when I talk about the unrighteous dominion in the priestcraft cabal and all these things, you all understand what I'm saying. But there's people out there that aren't on Discord. They're not going to take the time to do this stuff. And they clip stuff out or they just hear stuff and they make assumptions. And I didn't know this, but crazy enough that without anything more than just assumptions, people can really punish your life. And it's like, apparently. And so I need to be very, very careful. So when I say things like Ford Broncos and I say, if you're in the chat, please just write something in there like he's talking about himself, he's talking about this, he's talking about, I'm going to talk about Kim or what, like I'm talking about these other people, like help me out here, okay? Because I apparently can get myself into a lot of trouble with this. So just in the chat, help me out. Matt understands like the inside joke, the pudgy stuff. Me and Matt understand each other, you know. But we understand each other. The Ford Bronco, most people we understand each other. But then there's somebody in my stake, right, that just bought a Ford Bronco or something, right? And he's like, "Oh, I can't believe Micah would say that about me." And it's like, I'm not talking to you. Like I am not talking to you. And so it's just anyway. So you can really get into a lot of trouble with people just with assumptions. Apparently, I didn't realize that. I thought we had to be a little bit more clear and have better communication and stuff. But apparently, you can just get nailed with assumptions, right? Unbased, unprovable assumptions. So I need to be better. So when I'm doing this, I need to be very safe and like when I say something, I don't like doing it. I don't like saying like, oh, I'm talking about Kim from the who's tied to the hip with Hannah from the Joseph Smith Foundation and her LDS exposing LDS energy healing and whatever the heck that Facebook thing's. I'm gonna have to be very, very clear. I don't like doing it, but I'm gonna have to do it just so I just don't get myself into more trouble because it's um like I said, people apparently can make assumptions, and based off of assumptions and zero evidence, they can really hurt you in your life. So I got to be very good with this and just be very clear, right? Apparently, be very, very clear. Didn't realize this was a thing. All other priest crafters, and all the Kingsmen. Nobody else seems to have problems with this, but I have problems with this, so I need to at least for the time being, I need to really be careful with our inside jokes, right? Our inside stuff so that people know who we're talking about and what's going on. So hopefully you guys can help me out with that, okay? Yeah, Benjamin. Benjamin just says here, I never look at Fort Broncos without thinking about you. Yeah, well, there you go. Well, that's because we've been around so long with each other. Like we know what we're talking about, right? Where we know the whatever the word is, euphemisms. We know the inside jokes and the stuff, but people don't, and it can apparently get me into trouble. So it's just need to be very clear, and just so people know I'm not talking about them, right? So just to be clear on that. Okay. So hopefully you guys and gals that are listening can help me with that. And when I'm doing stuff like that, you can do it. Like when I break into my voice, people will know that I'm doing my Brian Regan voice or whatever, and I'm not specifically trying to mimic one specific person. It's a Brian Regan voice. I'm trying to be stupid and funny. But once again, I thought you would think a lot of this is self-explanatory, but it's really not. So anyway, so with that said, that's kind of part of the family updates. So that's part of that here. So we can get through some of this stuff. So that's part of the family updates. I'm having to be a lot more careful with things that are going on. It's kind of an interesting interesting series of events. You know what? I might actually move some of these around. Maybe I'll start with world update. I think a lot of people like kind of sharing these videos, and so like maybe I'll just kind of get the other stuff. I'll get the other stuff like at the end, so people like who don't want to sit through an hour and a half, 2 hour video, they can kind of get more of this other stuff up front. That way people, if they really do want to share this with others, they can do that a little bit easier. And then at the end, we'll get our family updates and stuff. People that probably aren't interested in that kind of stuff, right? So we'll do the family updates and the project updates. We'll do that stuff at the end. How about that? So the first thing I would just say here is okay, so like world update. So how's the world going? What's going on? And how we're going to tie this into the macroelastic timeline. Same thing with the church updates and so forth. So what do we got going on in the world? It's really interesting. The Going back to what I actually said at the beginning here, it's actually very interesting how much people have fallen asleep. Almost exactly like the besieging of Jerusalem, and people falling back asleep and being like, I think we're good. I think we're good. See that whole prophecy about the siege Jerusalem and well, we're fine, right? And then they ended up eating their own children and in the temple lot and in Jerusalem, and blood up to the bridle and all that nasty stuff, whatever you know we don't need to worry about that. And bam, it hit. So it's fascinating tying that into that with how much people have fallen asleep and going into the world events because man, it's so interesting how awake the majority of the church was the last 4 years, not just because of the COVID thing, because even when the COVID thing died down, Biden obviously got into office. And, still to this day, the overwhelming majority of the church tends to lean more conservative. It's definitely changing, but it still tends to lean more towards the conservative side, which means that when the other side's in power, the other side is much more prone to anxiety and so forth. So it's just funny because it's like when Biden was in office, the conservatives, were awake and they were like, "What's going on?" And you look at every little thing Biden does and you freak out. But as soon as Trump gets into office, it's like, yeah, we're good. Let's just, Trump will just take care of everything, and I can close my eyes and just forget about the world for the next 4 years. In fact, there were some people I actually, I used to really enjoy, and that don't really produce much content anymore. But now they're involved in other forms of priestcraft. But anyway, they came out when Trump won and basically were like, you know what, Ezra's Eagle, it could still be true, and here's the reason it could be true. And basically, we won't know if it's gonna, any of that for the next, 3 to 4 years. So let's just wait till the end of Trump's term, and then they just like vanished. And it's been like now like a year, 2 years, and they haven't made any new content. And it's like so they when Trump came in, it was like some people even just flat out said, yeah, I'm just going to go back to sleep for the next 4 years because I'm pretty sure that none of these signs of the times, none of these things are going to occur in the next 4 years during Trump's presidency. And I'm just going to go to sleep, which is crazy to me because it's like all of the stuff that Biden was doing and the Clintons were doing and all the stuff that was going on there that we really had a problem with and that we're like, oh my goodness, we need to pay attention. This is a big deal. Trump is doing far, far worse. I remember far worse. I remember when we were complaining to like the umpteenth because Chelsea, Clinton, whatever her name is, the Clinton's daughter, I think it's Chelsea, had that like $32 million charity, and we were like, $32 million, like how does that even possible? Like they made $1 million on this, like this shouldn't happen. This is outrageous. People shouldn't get rich in politics, and then Trump gets in and makes $900 million on a basically a Ponzi scheme Trump coin and nobody bats an eyelid. Like $900 million. And no one bats an eyelid. No one cares. The conservatives are like, yeah, I don't really even care. So it's like all of the stuff, the wars, the bombing, all of the libertarians that were freaking out, with Obama and and Biden and all these drone strikes and or Clinton even with all these just military operations as they call them so that they're not so they can somehow quote unquote remain constitutional because an actual war requires a declaration of war from the I believe Senate that as soon as Biden or Obama or Clinton as soon as they do things it's like everyone on the right's like, where's the war? How long's it been? We need to have a declaration of war. This is unconstitutional. And Trump can like literally start a war with Iran. And it's not a military operation. Like it is so clearly a war with Iran. And then all the people on the right are just like, oh, this is good. It's a good thing that he's fighting Iran. And it's like, we're just so hypocritical and just not grounded in these things. And I don't really care about politics, right? Obviously, I'm not a huge politics guy. I care about honesty, I care about integrity, I care about hypocrisy, and I care about the signs of the times. And this effect is like not only hilarious to me, it's almost hard to believe that people don't understand how prophetic it is. Because like in order for the virgins to fall back asleep, there's like no other way that would have happened except with these series of events. How do you let the call go out? How do you do all these events, wake people up, and then people, slumber and they slept, and then like how do you do all this without literally these steps all happening? Desolating sickness, Biden winning, potential election fraud, and then all of a sudden Trump coming back in, and then just everyone falling asleep. It's crazy. That's crazy. So much so that it's interesting to me because like we have a full blown war that like we're calling a war with Ukraine and Russia, and no one's doing any, like, no one's seemingly even cares about it anymore. We brought it up this last week in the Three Brothers. No one even cares about it anymore. And I don't know how much more you can get. Oh, it's raining outside, and get some thunder. I love this. It's been a really dry summer for us here. And oh my goodness, I miss the thunder and rain. This is awesome. So I got to do this with some cool ambient rain and thunder. Anyway, um, level shifted myself. So, but we just don't seem to care about this Ukraine thing, right? We just don't seem to care about this Ukraine thing and this war going on, and we don't understand apparently um how much this situation could blow up. Oh, and I was saying, so like, how much more sign of the time can you get that there can be wars like this going on multiple places in the world that aren't just, oh, minor infractions that could blow into full blown nuclear holocaust, and we don't care at all. Like, we just don't even care at all. Like, imagine that. Imagine if Russia was invading Ukraine in the 1970s during the Cold War, right? Imagine that. Boomers would have been having aneurysms, right? They'd have been hiding under their desks. They would still have we would be having the nuclear drills going on in the school still, where it's like, "Wee!" And it's like everyone's getting under their desk and like holding tight and being like, praying to God because they're going to see him soon because the nuclear blast is going to wipe them out. Like, that's what we would be doing right now. And it's like, but it's going on right now. Well, the Soviet Union, Russia, is really not all that much different than it is today. It's not like they got rid of their nukes. They still have their nukes. It's not like they have more favorable positions or attitudes towards the West. They don't. And here they are in this situation, and the West is continuing to kick the hornet's nest. And like we talked about in the Three Brothers, they are providing Ukraine with these drones, almost like little hornets that sting people, right? Like, could kill the third part of man, almost like the Book of Revelation. We're not there in there yet, so calm down. We're not there yet, but it sounds an awful lot that, right? Like these hornets that are flying around that are just wounding people but not able to kill them. It kind of sounds like that. But they got these drones now going over there with Ukraine, and it's basically just like an unmanned drone with a little stick of C4 on it, and it just flies around with a camera, and it just finds these Russians and lands on them and explodes. And the death toll on these poor Russian soldiers, because war sucks. We don't like death on either side of the equation, right? Ukrainians or Russians. It's a sad thing thinking about all these fathers and brothers and sons that are dying. They just get whacked by this drone and they're gone. And it's up to 30,000. It's up to 30,000 a month now that they're losing. That's 300,000. Russia's now up to 300,000 people dying per year. If this war just continues going on, and entirely because we are providing the means to kill the Russians, and now Ukraine is throwing drones all the way into Moscow. And so it's like, how much more of this do you think? And now Russia's talking like, okay, well, if this is going to be this kind of proxy war that you guys are going to have with us, we're going to either launch proxy wars ourselves, or we're just going to look into the nuclear option. We're just going to nuke, England and these places, and invade or invade Poland. And like, this is going on right now, and no one's talking about it. Nobody even really cares, which is fascinating, which is absolutely fascinating. I mean, there was more coverage of Biden pulling out of Afghanistan and the Afghanis, which, by the way, aren't Americans. We shouldn't. I hate to sound cruel, but we shouldn't care about them all that much. But we were like bleeding hearts, like, oh my goodness, I can't believe we left those Afghans behind. While we're like, shut down the border, get rid of the illegals. And so it's like we pick and choose where we have this random, caring. But anyway, we had more news coverage and focus on the right of like, oh my goodness, this Afghan withdrawal was terrible, which it was. But then, like, this stuff going on in Ukraine right now, which is like teeter-tottering on nuclear war, um, no one cares about. And so this idea that, like, well, maybe the second coming is further away. It's like, when they say peace, then no, sudden destruction comes. Well, we're all worried and we're all in a sense of anxiety and we're all raised to the maximum, right? If we knew at what hour the thief would come in the night, we would all be ready for him. That's not the case. It comes as a surprise. It comes as a shock, which means that, like this, like, if there is going to be a nuclear holocaust, people should realize this. If there is going to be a nuclear holocaust, if there is going to be this widespread destruction like that, it's going to come at a time exactly like this when no one thinks it's going to come. This is when it happens, right? The pagans, also known as the Vikings, the pagans, they attacked on Sunday for a reason. Even the Japanese attacking Pearl Harbor, they attack on these days for a reason. They know that we're not expecting anything and we're going to be at church and we're not doing anything. Like that's when these things happen. And so when we're like, oh, well, things are going well in the world, things have kind of calmed down. It's like, I don't know where you're getting all this from, right? Same thing with Israel. Oh, things are kind of seemingly calmed down. No, it's just, you're just not hearing it in the news, right? You're just not hearing it in the news. I'm not really sure how, people don't just acknowledge the fact that Israel is currently and has been involved in a mass slaughter of people, a genocide, if you will. I don't know how people don't acknowledge that. And removing them from land, I don't really understand how people, because once again, genocide isn't just about, we think of genocide, we think of these things now. Apparently, the Jews own the only right to ever say that again, which is I don't really get that. And we have to kind of have these images of, well, we have to be rounding them up and putting them in concentration camps, I guess, in order for it to like matter. But it's like none of these things have died down. Israel is still doing this, um, uh, involved in what it is. Ukraine has never been more dangerous than it is right now because uh, at one point in time in this war, Russia still thought they could win and still win easily. It's now getting to a point in time where even Biden's, not Biden, even Putin is it acknowledging that things aren't going well, and that's not good. And they're talking about contingency plans and their Samson option, right? Like Israel's Samson option, and so things are just weird. And I would agree with Topher with all this. I think if you don't realize that you're being swindled on all these levels and you just think, all is well in Zion, we're in peace, like this is, you're just a sheep. You're just asleep at the wheel, and that's not who we talking about or who we should be talking to in any of this stuff. But there's just stuff going on right now that is so prophetic in the Macro Last Day timeline with this. And the last thing I would say with the world update here, this was just to help me remember stuff. I'm not going to actually get into um, posting in scriptures, whatever, was the illegal immigrants. We've talked about this obviously throughout the years. Every single time we've done this August video, we've talked about this, about how the slaves rising against masters who were marshaled and prepared for war, right? The Doctrine and Covenants 87. This idea of this breaking point, all of the Isaiah chapters, right? All the Isaiah chapters, which obviously got transcribed again, with from the original version into the Book of Mormon with the Assyrian, right? If we look back at any of these things, any of those prophecies or Assyria generally, like the reason why Assyria lost or eventually imploded was from the inside out, and it was due to conflicting cultures. It was due to them trying to absorb too many cultures, being actually multicultural. Like that's not a tongue-in-cheek thing. Like that was literally the cause, and it couldn't keep a national cohesion, and it eventually just imploded from the inside out. And that's eventually what did it. Well, Assyria is this whole this nasty force that's used and is used prophetically and dualistically in all of the Isaiah chapters, because Assyria comes in and causes all these problems for Israel. It's exactly what's going on right now. It's exactly what's going on right now. And so, like, we've talked about for years the slaves rising against masters being this thing in Europe, and being this point. The only thing that we've gotten, you could say, wrong has been the timing of it. And I being wrong on the timing on this is actually really bad. And I'll tell you why. The quicker we can have the slaves rising as master situation in Europe, that kicks this stuff off, the faster that happens, the less bloodshed there's going to be. The longer this goes on and the more that this gets entrenched and the more it moves the needle one direction to slaves rising as masters who are marshaled and disciplined and prepared for war, they're waiting for this to happen. The longer the slaves wait to rise up, the more of a slaughter it's going to be for everyone. The more of a problem it's going to be for everyone. And so, like, there are these things that were happening last year, 2025, when we did this in England and in Ireland and even like Sweden. there was these triggers that were happening that was like, oh my goodness, this is it. This is going to be this will be the slaves rising against masters that do this, and it just hasn't, or in France or whatever, and it just isn't happening. And so it's like, if it continues to, and they're like just hundreds and hundreds of thousands of military aged men just pouring into Europe, not no women, no children, just military aged men. And the more time that passes before that happens, the more bloodshed that there's going to be. And you go into the Book of Mormon on, like, once again, why that happens or why people are so complacent. It's all the priestcraft, secret combinations, and idolatry. That's what causes it. In that, um, even if the people weren't engaged in priestcraft, even if the people were not engaged in the secret combinations, even if the people in the Book of Mormon were not engaged in those things, it says that they still partook of the spoils of those things. Um, so basically, it was like, I'm not going to condone. I'm not going to condone these wars. I'm not going to be a part of it. But I'll buy the stuff. Basically, it's like, for us today, it'd be like, I don't condone child labor, slavery. I don't condone these working conditions in Asia. I don't condone blah 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 blah. But I'm gonna buy an Apple phone. But I'm gonna buy these Nike products from Asia. It's not kind of like that. It's literally like that. Where the idea is, you're gonna not take part necessarily in the secret combinations or the priestcraft, but you're like, but I'll buy their books, but I'll buy their podcasts. Like, I'm not gonna really, I'm gonna say, I wish that it wasn't the case. I wish that there was this, my feelings. I'm gonna throw my feelings off into the universe. I wish things were different, but since they aren't, I'm just gonna keep, partaking of the spoils of the secret combinations and so forth. And it says in the Book of Mormon that it got to a point in time that the only group that didn't were the anti-Nephi Lehi's, the people of Ammon. They drove this priestcraft, this secret combination, and the spoils of it out of their system. They purged it. They got rid of it, and that would require a level of faith and dedication that is almost impossible to believe that exists in the saints today. It's like purging Babylon, purging these systems, basically becoming the Amish, basically just purging these things from your system entirely and saying, we will not partake of the spoils of these. We don't. We want to say, well, we can live in Babylon, plunder Babylon while still building Zion. Like, we want to have this viewpoint exactly like described in the Book of Mormon, where the people that claimed to be of God ended up just basically becoming soft recipients of the priestcraft and the secret combination and stuff, all for the sake of idolatry. Because if their hearts weren't set so much upon the things of the world, it'd be so much easier for them just to get rid of the stuff. But they really want the stuff, and so they self-justify and go, "Well, I can have my cars, my Ford Broncos, and I can have my stuff, and I can eat my Kung Pao chicken, and what's other stuff Micah likes." Like Buffalo Wild Wings. I can eat all that as much as I want, and I can do it all. But, like, just so long as I'm not out actually being the one driving in the knife, right? So long as the secret combinations are occurring out there, so long as they're the ones killing other people, right? So long as it's the military going over to this other country and, like, pillaging it and stealing all the resources or whatever. So long as it's them and not me, I can still go buy the products, and I don't have to worry about it, right? But the further this goes along, the more bloodshed there will be. The worse this situation gets. And who, 5 years, 6 years ago, who was talking about this? Me. I was talking about this. You know why? Because Isaiah was talking about this. Because it's in the Book of Mormon. That's why. You know who's talking about this today? Everyone, including people like Elon Musk, all the intellectuals. They all know. And Elon Musk now, and intellectuals now that are being honest and aren't paid and aren't a part of these secret combinations, at least in this degree, at least in this regard. There might be in other ways, but they're all saying the exact same thing. They're all saying that this war in Europe, or civil war in England and in Ireland, are now unavoidable. It's unavoidable. It's 100% certain that it's going to happen now, because these cultures are completely they cannot assimilate. You cannot hold to these gods and these beliefs and hold to these gods and these beliefs and share the same space. You cannot do it. because this group believes in tolerance and this group doesn't. And so those two groups cannot exist in a coexistence. They can only exist in a dominant and slavery position, or a dominant and kafir, or um, position, a cattle position, if you will. They can only exist in those kinds of positions. They can't coexist in any other way. And so they know that this is what's happening over there in Europe. They're collapsing the system, and so they know this is inevitable. And what are they describing? And I've shared over this course of this year. I think this year there's been more times that prophecy has been literally repeated word for word by news anchors than I think any of the years past. It's crazy to me how many times I've pasted in stuff this year where it's like somebody has said, well, slaves in Europe will eventually rise and are going to rise against their masters, and it's going to be blah 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 blah. And it's like he literally, like, they just literally quoted Dr. Government's 87. So anyway, where's the air? I thought that this explosion was a lot more imminent. There's riots, but like even in Ireland, for crying out loud, which Ireland is obviously known for its Northern Ireland problem and their let's say rebellious spirit, the Irish, the fighting Irish, and that situation blew up in Ireland, and there was militant reaction and people marching in the streets, being like, and burning houses and stuff. And I thought, oh man, this could be what kickstarts a big problem here. This could be what kickstarts the slaves rise against masters. And once again, before anybody freaks out, I'm not condoning anything. Usually Ammon's here to put in these little footnotes here for us, but he's not here, so I'll just say it. I'm not condoning anything. I'm simply saying this is the way that the world is. This is what's happening in the world, and these are just obvious and natural consequences of what's happening, and they all coincide with prophecy. And so the slaves rise against masters, I was hoping that it would kickstart more early, but you know what? It's a hope that's not, it's like Mormon. My hope was in vain, right? My faith was in vain. I hope for something that just isn't what's going to happen. Joseph Smith prophesied that he saw that there would come a day when mothers would be against their daughters, sons against their fathers, and the blood would just run in the streets. And that in Dr. Numbers 45, the language is every man that will not take up his sword must flee to Zion for safety if he's righteous. If um, no man will find any safety but in Zion in that day. No man. And think about that. So like I kind of want, you kind of want to generalize things and kind of fluff it up, but think about that. How many times the word every man or every sword or every nation shall be, we're like how many times that's mentioned, and you have to then say, okay, is the Lord a liar? Is prophecy a liar? And if it's not, then think about the condition that things must be in which it doesn't say, oh, there's going to be this pocket of resistance over in Utah. It doesn't say, oh, there's going to be this pocket of resistance over there in Idaho, or oh, there's going to be this pocket of where you'll find safety. You'll be good so long as you're in eastern Spain or northern Ireland or whatever. You'll be safe. Like, it says everyone will be at war, everyone, and that everyone who doesn't want to take up the sword against his neighbor to fight. So that's everyone. It's me up here in Michigan. Will have to eventually make the choice to flee if you're righteous enough, and accept it, right, and have your oil and your lamp and are counted worthy to go to Zion. Otherwise, it's fight or die. Now think about the condition that it would require to ensure that such a prophecy was fulfilled literally and plainly. Things gotta get to a point in time where that's the way that it is. And so things have to escalate to a point in time where it's so bad that Joseph Smith said, if it wasn't for Zion and the place of deliverance, we must fall. We cannot be saved. We'd all die. Now think about that. Like, it's not like, oh, well, things might be bad and you might not have enough food. And it's like, no, you're all toast without Zion and the place of deliverance, right? Enoch saw that in the last days, tribulation would make necessary, not like, oh, optional or kind, no, make necessary for the deliverance of his people, and that means was to gather the elect to Zion, not to the church, not to the Church of Jesus Christ, no, to Zion, right? Eventually, it's going to come to a point in time where it's like if we don't have Zion and we're not in the literal Zion, it's not like, oh well, every man will be at spiritual war. Every man will be fighting with his own spiritual demons. No, this is literal bloody warfare. That's what this is. Every prophecy, every time it's written, it's literal prophecy about bloodshed and war. And so, what are the conditions that would be required? And so, yeah, apparently, it needs to get. We need to keep putting more and more waves and waves of these military age men in until finally these things start cascading, until these things start exploding, at which point in time every man will be at war. It's not just, oh, a part of Ukraine or a part of Turkey or a part of Iran. It's everything implodes. And more specifically, all of the Gentile nations, right? Because we know the Mac last day timeline. What do we know? We know that it's the Gentile nations that feel the chastening hand of the Lord first, starting with actually America is right up there. And then eventually the chastening hand of the Lord moves to Israel. And then ultimately the chastening hand removes and goes to the heathen nations. And the heathen nations will then be visited of the Lord up until the great and dreadful day. And so we're not waiting for conditions to arrive in such a way in the heathen nations, right? Things are pretty bad already in Africa, in Thailand, in even China, even India. Things are pretty bad there. We should be pretty grateful that we're born over here and that we have running water and food, and like things are pretty good over here. Things are pretty bad in the heathen nations. Okay, pretty bad. We're not waiting for things to transpire over there. We're waiting for the times of the Gentiles to come to their end. We're not waiting for the times of the Gentiles to be fulfilled. There is a difference between the fulfillment of the times of the Gentiles and the end. The end of the times of the Gentiles doesn't actually occur until the Mount of Olives, which we know, right? The Gentiles will finally gather in one final, you know, kerfuffle, and they'll gather themselves together to fight against Israel, and the times of Gentiles will end. And that's when it ends, when Jesus comes out and just destroys what's left of Gog and Magog. It's over. It ends. And Israel, i.e., Old Jerusalem, is purged, and they go through their scourging and rises to be what it's supposed to be finally, with Jesus appearing on in the valley at the Mount of Olives. That's what we know is coming. But that means that it's us first. It's America first. It's Europe first. It's us first. And I'm hoping. I was hoping for a couple things. I was hoping that there would be more of the few, more of the remnant. I was hoping there would be more saints that you would start to see wake up, take things seriously, take the gospel seriously, fight against priestcraft, fight against idolatry, fight against actual, secret combinations and so forth, not the ones that we can't even fight against. There would be more of that. There would be more ground swelling of that. I believe that there was a quote shared very recently from Elder Christofferson in Discord. I could go find it, where he said that he is convinced more than ever that it isn't that the thing that's holding back the Lord right now isn't the world to get wicked enough. It's that a large enough group of covenant people rise high enough to the standard. That's what we're waiting for. And we know that both of those things are actually simultaneously true. The world gets more wicked, right, for destruction. But at the same time, there has to be a group of a righteous remnant who are doing exactly this. They're cutting off priestcraft, they're cutting off the secret combinations, and they're trying their best to cut off the spoils of it as well. And they're trying to prepare themselves, mind, body, soul, for the redemption of Zion and for living celestial law and for all those things. They have to be ready for those things. And we're waiting for that. I'm waiting for that forever. People who are tired of the world, people who want an actual literal Zion. We're still waiting for that. And President Nelson said one of the last great promises and commitments that he made before he passed was that he he committed us to become the people who are able, worthy, and ready to receive the Lord when he comes again, because we've already accepted, we already understand the higher laws of the celestial kingdom, and we rejoice to live them. And then we've sanctified ourselves and are worthy to be considered truly the pure in heart who will see Christ. And that was part of his last great commitment, and that's what's holding us back. And my hope was that and because once again, people might think that I'm a pessimist, but I'm actually quite an optimist. I want things to work out better. I don't like suffering. People also seem to think that, like, I don't know, that because we call out sin, because that we don't, that we're mean and that we're judgy, and they, oh, the you're Pharisees, and it's like, uh, you know, the people of God tend to be the most empathetic people that are on the planet, literally, because they understand the wages of sin or death. They understand this, and they're trying desperately to avoid suffering, and they don't want that, and so they're trying their best to get people to avoid suffering. The other group that just says all's well in Zion, yea, Zion prospers. You're not going to suffer for disobeying the prophet. You're not going to suffer for these things. It's like those people, it's like they're completely they're completely okay with you suffering, because what they're teaching leads to suffering, right? um i I don't want suffering, and I think as part of being a disciple of Christ, nobody wants suffering. And so you try to be optimistic. You try not to look at the darkness, right? And there's been multiple really good talks from general authorities on signs of the times and stuff, and they've said, look, the biggest reason why a lot of us don't like talking about signs of the time is because they're dark, nasty, bloody, disgusting, and it hurts our spirit. But they're given to us for a reason, and we can't look away from them. We have to look at them and know what's coming, right? Joseph Smith said, "With a view of these things, shall I cry peace? No, I will cry night and day, warning people against what I know is coming." Right? Um, and both ends of the spectrum have really been sad to watch and realize that the noose has gotten so tight on these things that it will almost be unavoidable for most people at this point. Um, I was hoping that the remnant, I was hoping the few, I was hoping you would see this more, this ground swelling from members back to Zion, back to the literal idea of Zion, back to farmsteading, back to standing independent, back to not viewing your brother better than yourself, back away from priestcraft, away from these things. I was hoping to see these slave situation rise against their masters long ago. I was hoping to see it happen long ago. Um, because it avoids suffering. It's like, being a Abinadi. Think about it from Abinadi's perspective. You know what's coming, right? So you know that there's slavery coming. You know that there's gonna be death, suffering. You know that they're gonna be led forth, as Abinadi said, as dumb asses. That's what he said. You know that that's coming, and the in fact, at that point in time, the church, right? Because once, as you know, Noah and his priests, they were wicked, but they were priests. They were of the church. Um, were trying to kill Abinadi and told him that he had to shut up and stop preaching. And Abinadi then went into hiding for a while, right? And then tried to teach secretly. And it's funny because with the Abinadi thing, people like to mock Abinadi, but the story is so sad. It's so sad if you understand what's happening. But anyway, they tell a story like, and Abinadi went among them secretly, trying to preach to him, and then they read the next line, and saying, "I Abinadi," and people laugh, right? People laugh and go, "Oh man, like Abinadi, that stupid guy. Like, apparently he wasn't very good at keeping himself secret." But think about that. Like, people laugh at stuff like this, but think about the situation. Where would Abinadi have actually said, "I Abinadi," blah blah blah? Where? He would have said it amongst a group of saints that he believed he was safe at. Now think about that. That's literally the only place that Abinadi in secret would have been standing around a group of people that are gathered together to hear him, at which point in time he would say, "I Abinadi." And there was a rat in the midst. There was a rat in the midst that went and said, "That's Abinadi. I'm gonna go get him in trouble. I'm gonna go to the church. I'm gonna go to the wicked priests of Noah, and I'm gonna get Abinadi toast. And that's what happened. But think of it from Abinadi's perspective, right? He knows that if he can get Alma the elder, he doesn't know who it is, but he's, hypothetically, just generally speaking, he knows, Abinadi knows, if I can just get one guy that can spread into two, into three, and get this ground swelling at a place like, oh, I don't know, the Waters of Mormon, if I could get this ground swelling and get this group to escape early, that group will avoid so much problems, right? It will avoid so much suffering if I can just do this. That's the one end of the equation. And the other end is if I can get the people to instigate or come to this climax with the Lamanites and what I know is coming quicker, then maybe there'll be less suffering as well on that end. And did Abinadi get either of those? Not really. Not really. Because what do we end up learning? Only about 300 people leave with Alma. That's how small the group was. That's how small the group was that left with Alma into the waters of Mormon. It was about 300 people. And what about the other thing? No, it literally didn't kickstart until the Lamanites could be seen from the watchtower, and Wicked King Noah was about ready to get whacked by his own guards. That's how bad it didn't come down and come to a head until literally civil war was breaking out. Now think about that. Think about the timing of that. Impeccable timing. It was the last possible moment, which ensured what? Maximum fatality, maximum casualties, maximum suffering among the people. Because same thing, no repentance, no one cared. And it's that those both ends of the equation. It'd be great if there was more than 300 people. You're hoping, man, if only there could be more people that would wake up, repent, and take this seriously and get out while they can. And you just know at the end it's not gonna happen. Not only that, poor Abinadi goes down, and obviously he's looking on from beyond the veil, but when he went down, as far as we know, his thought had to be, I couldn't even get one. That might have been his poor viewpoint. It had gotten down to the last point where Abinadi was teaching a group of people that he thought was loyal, that wanted to hear the word of the Lord. And he said, I, Abinadi, blah, 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 blah. And somebody in that small group backstabbed him and betrayed him to the church at the time, those wicked king priests, and got him killed. And he died thinking, even my own friends betrayed me. There's nothing left. I like Joseph Smith. I spent my strength in vain, right? Like and Israel is not gathered. And he, I'm sure he watched on if he was allowed to from beyond the veil, but that's when we get Alma the Elder, and it's only 300. Alma the Elder continued the mantle. There's only 300 that escaped. And you want both ends of the equation. You want the kind of like the popping of the boil, right? Like you want the popping of the boil. You want the popping of this to occur earlier, because if the pop occurs earlier, there's less pain. You wait for the bubble to get as big as possible. It's maximum pain. It's maximum pain. So with us today, it's like you really just want the slaves to rise against masters to pop, because the longer it waits, the more catastrophic the pop's going to be with anything, right? Talk about a financial collapse. You want the pop to occur lower so that people can still recover, so people can still mitigate the damages of the pop and so forth. But if you wait till that bubble gets so big and then it finally pops, there's a lot of people that are losing their retirements, a lot of people that are losing their homes. There's people that it's gotten so bad they're taking their own lives, because the pop the didn't occur early enough. The slaves rising against master just didn't occur early enough. And the other end is, where are you going to get that righteous remnant? Where are you going to get those righteous remnant? Like we're still arguing about some of the most basic things in the gospel. We're still defending, just like I said, the big three: idolatry, priestcraft, and secret combinations. We're still just dancing around in circles on that. We can't agree on that, let alone talk actually getting a real understanding and belief in the law of consecration, the law of celestial marriage, the law of the patriarchal order. We're just not there. We're cooked. And so that's the state of the world right now. It's I was hoping this stuff would occur earlier. It hasn't. So when is it going to occur? Soon. Has to occur soon. But the longer the pop goes on, before it goes on, the more catastrophic this gets. The more catastrophic this gets, and the more painful this gets. And you better make sure you got your food storage. You better make sure you got your water storage. You better make sure that you have the things that you're supposed to have, especially in these times of lull, in these times of peace, quote unquote, because this is when it happens. So, what are we looking for? A couple things. When these things eventually go down and start spreading, we know it's going to come in a time of peace. We know the people are going to be saying, it's a time of peace, you're fine. And when they say peace, no sudden destruction comes. And we also know that it's actually going to occur in a lot of parts of the world in the fall. We know that it's going to start to really go down, especially actually in a lot of parts of America when the crops are starting to come in the fall for a lot of these people. So I don't know what that would be, August, or actually August, September, October. Yeah, for places in America. So those, whenever we get to close to those months, I always that, which is why we actually started doing this August video, because like this is the point in time where the hair in the back of your neck should go up, because this is when these prophecies start to really kickstart. And if you also at the same time have people lulled into a sense of sleep, and you also have people saying, all's well in Zion really loudly, and now's the time of peace, like we're good to go, that's exactly the time that you need to be like, what? Wait, I really need to take this stuff seriously, because that's when it hits. It hits at that time in the fall, because we know when Isaiah, when it talks about this, and the land with the eagle and yada yada yada, it can go into Isaiah. I really don't think we're going to break it down tonight. And Parley P. Pratt, the Pratts both have had some really good breakdowns on this. That basically what ends up happening is right before the fruit starts to become harvestable and get done, then all this stuff hits, and we lose all that food. And then there's this war and destruction that hits. A lot of people, including Elder Bruce McConkie, hypothesized or speculated or gave his opinion that he believed a lot of this stuff was nuclear holocaust. But anyway, that's speculation. Occurs that time, and it's so widespread and catastrophic that the people don't have time to really even bury the dead, and the animals, it says, feast upon the bodies that are everywhere, and stuff up and into the winter. And that's kind of how we know that it's that these events, at least that series of events, occurs sometime between the fall to the winter. And so every time that happens, like we reach August, it's like this is the time to make sure you got your food storage. This is the time of the year that you really want to make sure you got a food storage. You really want to make sure you have your year's supply of food and water and clothing where applicable, fuel where applicable, and stuff, because that's what it is. And do we have all the other boxes checked? Are we in a time of peace? Are there, slaves needing to be, rising against masters and stuff? Are the masters marshaled and disciplined for war? Are they ready for this stuff? It sure seems like yes. And how much more time do we have? And you know what's the crazy, I would say, about the thing with the world update? There's an awful lot. I keep my ear to the ground with a lot of stuff. I like listening to Christian pastors from time to time, like just out in the world, Presbyterians. There's a couple people that I think are very interesting, from time to time, that I'll listen. What's fascinating though is that most of these people who talk end of the day, end of days, last day stuff are writing for a time that and reading the same signs and just using the Bible, and are arriving at the idea that like that these series of events are going to happen. There are some people that believe that the 7 years of tribulation have already even started. So like, and these are big name Christian preachers, like big name Christian preachers with big audiences and stuff. So I mean, like, there's a seeming consensus among maybe not Latter-day Saint theology, but Christian theology, that we have most certainly entered the end days to some degree, right? So they're finally caught up to the idea that this is the Church of Jesus Christ in the last days, right? We're in the of Latter-day Saints part, so they finally caught up to that, and they're putting through to their years the same thing, that these are things that are going to roll down between 2026 to 2028 is the dates that I keep hearing. And that should terrify people, right? That means that we have this year, 27 and 28, and then we pretty much reach the end of a lot of these prophetic timelines. And where these things happen. We basically, maybe you could stretch it, 3 more solid years, and then people, even the Christian world, has to start really going, what's going on here, right? So anyway, we don't have much time on that. So the update in the world is not looking good. Oh, and the other thing is which we're not talking about, is that Ukraine was a big thing on the food supply. Obviously, that's a big part of the reason why a lot of the food in the world got so expensive. But another big one that just hit, obviously, this year was this war in Iran, quote unquote, or not war in Iran, this military operation in Iran, whatever you want to call it that makes you feel better. Um, it did two things. It closed the Strait of Hormuz, and that did two things. One, it stopped the transfer of gas. Most people understood that, right? It raised your gas prices, but because of that, it dropped the national um, um, stockpiles of fuel that it had. Like, it got pretty bad in the United States, but it got like horrible in Australia. I remember like they were saying that there was only like a couple weeks left of fuel, and they were going to run out. That's a problem on so many levels, because so much of our agriculture is run by fuel and tractors and so forth. Like, that's a major deal. So even if the farmers just copped the bill on that one and just still planted their seeds and just ran the gas, that even if that happened, when it gets to the back end and they're selling this stuff, the cost is going to be to make up those losses. We don't even know what those are going to be yet. It's going to start happening when the farmers start, harvesting these things, and then start doing some basic math on how much they had to pay for this gas and how much they had to pay for these things, and then trying to sell things accordingly. So we haven't really even hit that until this year. So like the gas prices, huge on food production. But the other thing was that fertilizer. So that, just not to be long winded and talk about stuff people don't care about. There's a fertilizer that a lot of us use for the foods that we grow, and allows us to eat what we eat. That also not only comes around and from Ukraine, but it also goes through the Strait of Hormuz. So this war in Ukraine and war in Iran and the closing of the Strait of Hormuz have done things that have crippled, really hurt our food supply worldwide. And there are a lot of people right now that are projecting into the fall and harvest season, and then looking into next year, that are making some pretty grisly predictions that famine could be a big issue in a lot of the world. I mean, like, once again, if you're sitting here in Michigan, surrounded by Amish, like, you might not feel it. You might not feel it, but or even realize, maybe you don't even realize that there are literally tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands potentially, that die every single year all around the world of starvation. They don't have food and they die. We are just so blessed over here that I can be flabby, that I need to get a little stronger. I need to get a little tougher here. Um, we can eat what we do. We're very, very blessed, and they're projecting that number of worldwide people who starve. They're saying that because of what happened in the Strait and the war in Ukraine and so forth, that this next year we could see that number double or triple. Just if all things even remain standard or moving at this rate. So if any, we are the system is so fragile right now, that if there was any serious thing, EMP, anything serious, that, or the Strait closed again for another long period, a couple months or whatever, that if anything like that happened right now, from fall going, like I said, the harvest this fall moving forward, it would be catastrophic. And so don't take this lightly at this point in your life. So just go do a check on your food storage, make sure you have the stuff, because this is the time that things go down. This is it. This is it. Okay. I don't know. So as far as world updates and the macro last time, that's the biggest thing that I would say. We're running into the last couple of years of this happening. We're running into the last couple of years of this being a possibility, and then it's going to hit. And I was hoping it would hit, man, much earlier, 2024, 2025. It's and things are just you're getting swindled. Spain says they're not really interested in this, Iran thing. They're not interested in all this stuff, and all of a sudden Israel dumps off a couple 100,000, or allegedly there's unknown origins. All of a sudden there's a couple 100,000 military aged legal immigrants that just get dumped onto Spain. So it's like there's stuff going on, folks. There's stuff going on. They know what they're doing. They're doing it on purpose. And like it says in Dark Knight 87, slaves rising against masters who are marshaled and disciplined for war. They're ready. And so they're sitting there. They're sitting there with the button. They want the war to happen. They want the slaves to rise against matter. They want this conflict for whatever reason. Um, or for whatever reason you want to say. We know what scripturally and prophetically the reasons are. Um, but the longer it waits, the more they have to push. It's kind of like people starting a fight. You're starting a fight and you can just say, "Hey, your mama," right? Oh, it's not that big a deal. Then you start doing a little more pushing. Then you punch somebody, and it's like eventually, like if the fight had started earlier, it might be like a yo mama, and they both leave, right? But the more you let it escalate, the more it gets to a point in time where it's like somebody's not leaving this fight. Somebody's going to die in this fight. The longer you let something escalate and not pop and resolve tension, and the more it becomes a fatal problem. And that's what we're doing right now. And we're doing it for exactly the same reasons Assyria did it. We're doing it for the exact same reasons that the Book of Mormon did it. We're doing it because we like our spoils from Babylon. We love our idolatry, and we're not willing to give it up. And we're not willing to give up the spoils of the priestcraft, the spoils of the secret combinations. And so we're just going to let it ride. We're just going to let it ride out until it pops. And basically, as it says, we're going to eat our Kung Pao chicken. We're going to drive our Ford Broncos. We're going to get fudgy. And we're going to try to enjoy that life as much as possible, ride it off into the sunset. Boomers like saying, it's a good thing I'm old. Good thing I got everything that I wanted out of life and I robbed this country for all it's worth. And it's a good thing I'm right at the edge when this finally explodes. At least I'll be dead. At least I got to enjoy all this. And what does it say in the scriptures? It says that when these things start kickstarting, there's going to be a group of people that just say, "Yeah, let the rocks fall on me and let me die." They're literally going to say, when all this starts happening, well, I lived a good life. At least I enjoyed and got the stuff I wanted. Let the rocks fall upon me. Let the mountains crush me and kill me. Let me just go. I don't want to live through this tribulation. I don't want to live through all this stuff. So just let the rocks pile upon me. Well, that's what we're getting. We're kicking the can down the road until we get to the very, very end. So, and it's going to get ugly. So, gonna get ugly. Brew down. All right. So, another thing that it talks about as far as last days, end days time is that just another thing to check off on the box for this summer being a weird one is that there's yet another. So we already all the other prophecies that I've talked about, and it's like we're already ticking them off. People being asleep, they say all is well. I mean, Trump's in office, yay! It's a time of peace. We're good. Like all this stuff where the famine being teeter tottering and we're on the edge of this. Okay, all of that. Okay, all of that's already checked off. Let alone the times of the Gentiles and the clock that we know we have, right? But then there's this other prophecy which is fascinating. It's a fascinating little prophecy that's in the Book of Mormon that I think it's in the Book of Mormon. Obviously, this is stuff off my head, so if I get some of this wrong, please forgive me. But I think it's in the Book of Mormon, and I believe it's Moroni. And it's one of these prophecies that like just it gets thrown in here and people just kind of ignore it. And it's like that's a very unique, very interesting prophecy. Yeah, it's in okay, so it's in Mormon chapter 8, and it's a very interesting one. So pay attention to some of this. This is very interesting. Um we're talking about some very specific things here in Mormon 8, prophesying, right? And so he starts off here. Search the prophecies of Isaiah. Behold, I cannot write them. Yea, behold, I say unto you that those saints who have gone before me. Okay. So the very first thing is like, okay, like what we've already gone over. Read Isaiah, understand the Assyrian, understand all these signs of the times, right? And he says this: I know that 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 the Lord's purposes are going to roll forward until what? Until all his promises shall be fulfilled. That's not. Oh wow! So kind of a little President Nelson. Oh, a little. Oh, what? A little President Nelson sounding there, right? There, Mormon. And then he says like, search the prophecies of Isaiah, right? Behold, I cannot write them. So it's like, what did President Nelson said? Oh, the time is coming when these all the promises of the Lord are going to be fulfilled. It's coming soon. And then he said, search these prophecies. And right here we have the I know all the promises of the Lord are going to be fulfilled. Search Isaiah. There's some big ones in here, right? Um, and then he said here, those saints who have gone before, who have possessed this land, shall cry, yea, even from the dust will cry unto the Lord. And as the Lord liveth, he will remember the covenant which he has made with them. Brothers and sisters, read this in the context of what we understand. We always want to tie these things so quickly to the Book of Mormon. What is this? What else could this sound, does sound like? Read the other prophecies everywhere else in the Book of Mormon. 2 Nephi 27. Read the prophecies elsewhere in the Book of Mormon. We are talking about resurrections here, folks. We are talking about people dying from the dust and they're crying unto the Lord, and the Lord's going to remember the covenant he made with them. What's the covenant he made with them? What's the central covenant of the Book of Mormon? What is it? It is the land inheritance. It is Zion, the New Jerusalem in Jackson County. That is central to the Book of Mormon. That is central to it's the whole book starts off with Lehi being told, "Hey, you got a land of promise. Get moving." The whole book's premise is based off of obtaining the land of promise, obtaining Zion, the New Jerusalem, obtaining that promise of the Lord, and not falling into the priestcraft cycle and losing it. That's essential to the whole thing. And he says here, these are going to cry from the dust, yea, crying to the Lord, as the Lord liveth, you will remember the covenant which he's made unto them. Every single, go back and look, every single one of these cry from the dust, cry from the dust. They will cry from the dust, and they'll say, avenge us. Why? The blood of the blood of the widows, the orphans. Why? Go back and read them. Every single one of these cases, every single one of these cases is tied to priestcraft. Every single one of these cases is tied to the fact, why have you polluted the holy church of God? Why? Why have you done this? Why have you polluted the holy church of God? In fact, if you go down here, it's in the same freaking chapter, by the way. Maybe I'll just keep reading. We're talking about priestcraft, folks. We're talking about might not this money better be spent than on the tower. We're talking about priestcraft. We're talking about the blood. Joseph Smith said, down with that of priestcraft, down with that sin, that the blood of the innocents may not cry from the ground against us. We're talking about priestcraft here. Okay, it's going to come in a day where this is happening, right? Anyways, I'm gonna keep going here. Okay, so we're talking about priestcrafts. He knoweth their prayers, that they were in behalf of their brethren. They knows their prayers. Cry night and day until deliverance comes, right? Pray that you may be accounted worthy to escape these things when they come, right? He knoweth their faith. For in his name could they remove mountains, and in his name could they cause the earth to shake. Hello. The mightiest works of the Lord are going to come between now and when he comes again, and it's going to come from a people that what? Have the faith to move flipping mountains, boys and girls. Have the faith to move mountains. Now, you think you're going to get that faith living the way that you're living? You really think you're going to get that faith to be able to do that, living the way you're living? Remove mountains. And in his name, they could cause the earth to shake. By the power of his word, they cause prisons to tumble. Even the fiery furnace could not hurt them, neither wild beasts nor poisonous serpents, because of the power of his word. He's going to remember the promises made to them. And what is he immediately tied to? Miracles. Marvelous, mighty, marvelous things, right? And behold, their prayers were in behalf of him, that the Lord should suffer to bring these things forth. Please, Lord, bring again Zion. Please, Lord, send your servant back. Lord, please let us have the redemption of Zion. Please, Lord, let these things happen. Please. And no one need say that they should not come. No one need say, guys, really? You're really still talking about the redemption of Zion? You really think we're going to go back to Jackson County? You really think the Lord's going to fulfill those promises? The Lord changed his mind. No one need say that they should not come. Don't you dare, for they surely shall, for the Lord has spoken it. And once again, Once again, what? Go back to Dr. Cummins 101. They're going to be gathered to Zion. Why? So that all the words of the prophets may be fulfilled. And go to Dr. Cummins, I believe 67. Go to Dr. Cummins, I believe 67. And we know what? They preached resurrection. Why? These are the things with which you must look for. And speaking after the manner of the Lord, they're even now nigh at hand. The resurrection is the event that we need to look for. These resurrections is the event that we need to look for that trigger these things. And don't say that this doesn't need to happen. Don't say that, oh, there's going to be no resurrections. There's going to be no return of Joseph Smith. There's going to be no return of these wonderful Nephites like Moroni. That Moroni obviously was already resurrected, but there was many other good men that lived and died from the time of Jesus's death and resurrection to 400 AD that most likely have not yet been resurrected. And they were promised this. They were promised this. So don't say that it's not going to happen. The Lord's spoken it. It's going to happen. And then he says this, for out of the earth shall they come. Okay, so either you believe in a hollow earth or you believe they're going to be resurrected. These people are coming back. They're going to come back by the hand of the Lord, and none can stay it. And it shall come in a day when it shall be said that miracles are done away, and it shall come even as one shall speak from the dead. Brothers and sisters, are we not here? Are we not here? What do you hear when you meet around saints? Do you hear this? Do you hear this? I hear it. Do you hear? Nah. These type of miracles are done away. They're not going to happen. Why do you talk about these things? Why are you talking about somebody coming back from the dead? Why are you talking like that? Why? It should be said that miracles are done away. Doesn't that just, I mean, it just breaks my heart. It really does. It gets me teary. It's just, when the Lord comes, will he find faith in the earth? And you go back to doctrine, or not doctrine. Let's go back to, I've been quoting 2 Nephi 27 a bunch. You go back to 2 Nephi 27, it's the same thing. Why does he do it? Why does he do this, right? Where I am a God, for behold, I am a God of miracles, and I will show unto the world that I am the same yesterday, today, and forever, and I work not among the children of men, save it be according to their faith. So it's not happening because you just don't believe, exactly what Mormon was saying. And again, it shall come to pass, the Lord shall say unto him that shall read the words that shall be delivered him. So if you believe the rest of the chapter has to do with Joseph Smith, you believe that this verse also has to do with Joseph Smith. And again, we're going to give these things to Joseph Smith. And the problem, quote unquote, is that Joseph is dead. So in order for this to happen, Joseph's got to come back. He's got to speak as though this one is dead. He's got to be resurrected. Why? For as much as his people draw near to me with their mouth and with their lips to honor me, but have removed their hearts far from me, and their fear towards me is taught by the precepts of men. Therefore, because this is the way that is, exactly like it describes in Mormon, therefore I will proceed to do a marvelous work among this people, yea, a marvelous work and a wonder, for the wisdom of their wise and learned shall perish, and the understanding of the prudent shall be hid. It shall be done in a day when miracles are said to be done away. That's for the Lord and Redeemer hath done his work. He's already redeemed. He's already restored the church. It's over. We have Zion. It's everywhere. It's the temple. It's Utah. Right? No. And it shall come in a day when the blood of the saints shall cry unto the Lord because of secret combinations and the works of darkness. The works of darkness being priestcraft, because of secret combinations and priestcraft, all because of idolatry. It's always the same things. Okay, it shall come in a day when the power of the God shall be denied, and churches become defiled and be lifted up in pride of their hearts. Yea, even in a day when leaders of churches and teachers shall rise in pride of their hearts, even to the envying of them who belong to their churches. And we've gone over this a million times, right? And the LDS student manuals. When we're talking about churches here, we're not talking about the Presbyterians, the Catholics, and this. We're talking about the church, the ward in Saskatoon. We're talking about the branch in Timbuktu. We're talking about different congregations of the Church of Jesus Christ. We're talking about to the Romans, to the Corinthians, that's what we're talking about here. Different congregations of the church, or different podcasts, different subscription-based things. That's what it is. Okay, which we're at. And all of these same things, you can go back to 2 Nephi 27, you can go back to those other scriptures, and it's word for word, like the word association, spot on. But then it gets down here to verse 29. This is the whole reason why I want to go into this. Now, listen to this. Listen to this just kind of weird prophecy tucked into the middle of this, which you really don't get anywhere else. Maybe people are familiar with this. Yea, it shall come in a day when there shall be heard of fires and tempests and vapors of smoke in foreign lands. What's that? Vapors of smoke in foreign lands, fires and tempests. What does this even mean? And to who? I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. When I read this and I understand the Book of Mormon to be a Book of Mormon written for the New Jerusalem, written for the Americas, I definitely tend to be more of a let's say literalist, because that's the way the Lord is. And so I personally am much more inclined to support the idea of a one hill Cumorah, at which point in time the hilltop people, or um oh I'm just drawing a blank. I believe the Book of Mormon took place in America. And I believe that all these prophecies and all these things we know start within America. And so what it shall come in a day when there shall be heard of fires and tempests and vapors of smoke in foreign lands. How, in what context is this written in a way that would make any sense? If you believe that, well, Mormon and Moroni saw the last days, and they saw that the Book of Mormon would be read everywhere. It's going to be read in England. It's going to be read in Africa. It's going to be read all over the world. And so, well, then where are the vapors of smoke in foreign lands? Because, like, what about the people reading the Book of Mormon in the place where the vapors of smoke are coming from? That then it can't be fulfilled, right? Unless you read this from the context of this is understood primarily from a perspective of these men were standing in, prophesying to specifically the saints standing in the same area, which is why they constantly say, this land is a land of peace. This land is a land of promise. This land, this land, this land. They're talking from a perspective of standing on and in America. And so when they say there's going to come a point in time where you're standing here and you hear about fires and tempests and vapors of smoke in foreign lands, I'll tell you what, another one of those prophecies that I think is always fascinating that I might want to check off is when, I don't know, there's fires and tempests and vapors of smoke coming down from Canada. And it turns out to be this big, massive deal. And I go, man, I don't like that. I don't like the fact that I'm hearing about major fires, tempests, and vapors of smoke coming down from foreign lands, Canada. I don't like that, because that's yet another thing that's being checked off of the box saying this could be the fall, this could be the winter, this could be the time that this all hits. Okay? I don't know. And there shall be heard of wars, rumors of wars, and earthquakes in diverse places. Okay? It's check, right? This is it. Yea, and it shall come in a day when there shall be great pollutions upon the face of the earth. There shall be murders and robbings and lyings and deceivings and whoredoms and all manner of abominations. When there shall be many who will say, do this or do that, and it mattereth not, for the Lord will uphold such in the last day. Give in to your homosexual tendencies. Practice priestcraft. Get gain for preaching the word of God. Do this, do that. It doesn't matter. The Lord will uphold such in the last day. You'll be fine. But woe unto such, for they are in the gall of bitterness and the bonds of iniquities. Yea, it shall come in a day when there shall be churches built up that shall say, come unto me, and for your money you shall be forgiven of your sins. Those who are familiar with understand what that means. You tie that to the King Benjamin. understanding of that you're caring for the needy and the poor and the widow and the downtrodden is tied directly to your retaining a remission of your sins. You can go and learn that doctrine very clearly as taught by King Benjamin, that that's the way it happens, that you can retain a remission of your sins and do retain a remission of your sins based purely off of that. And there's a problem when people begin to say, pay your tithing, pay your fast offerings, and then you do not have to worry about the beggar on the street. You don't have to worry about the widow because you've already taken care of your responsibility to retain a remission of your sins. And so anytime we as members of the church teach, you know what? You don't have to worry about the beggar. You don't have to worry about the widow up the street. And are you doing enough? And are you making sure they're fed and clothed? Just so long as you give money to the church. So long as you say, I pay my fast offerings and I pay my tithing, then you don't have to worry about that because you're already taken care of. Well, if you teach that, then you are literally saying, come unto the church, and for your money you shall be forgiven of your sins. You shall retain a remission of your sins, as taught by King Benjamin, which is a false doctrine. Pay your tithing, yes. Pay your fast offerings, yes. But in order to retain a remission of your sins, you must also live the law of consecration, in which you still are responsible to the widow and the beggar on the street in front of you. You cannot overlook them and say you were justified. Okay. So anyway, oh, you wicked and perverse and stiff-necked people, why have you built up churches unto yourself to get gain? Then he hones in on the one big thing that causes all this and the destruction of it, which is priestcraft, and central to it is this gain. And in order to do it, you have to have transfigured the holy word of God. And he says, why have you twisted the scriptures to allow gain in the preaching of in the word of God? Why have you transfigured the word of God? That you may bring damnation upon your souls? Like, what, you do realize that this is what you're going to get for this. Behold, look ye unto the revelations of God, for the time cometh at that day when these things must be fulfilled. Behold, the Lord has shown unto me great and marvelous things concerning that which must shortly come at that day when these things are going to start happening among you. Great and marvelous, the marvelous working of wonder. We're not just talking about the Book of Mormon. We're talking about this point when slaves rise against masters and there's this crash and Joseph Smith comes back openly and 2 Nephi 27, all those things we just read. Then he does all those scriptures we're familiar with. I speak unto you as you're present, but yet you are not, but Jesus Christ has shown me. And then he goes into all those things we said. There is none save a few only who do not lift themselves up into the pride of their hearts and the wearing of very fine apparel, unto envy and strife and malice. You've all become polluted because of the pride of your hearts. You love your money, your substance, more than, and the adorning of your churches and temples more than you love the poor and the needy, the sick and the afflicted. Oh, you pollutions, you hypocrites, you teachers who sell yourselves for that will canker. Priestcrafters, you're preaching the word of God for gain. Why have you polluted the holy church of God? That's not the Catholics. That's not the Presbyterians. We know there's only one holy church of God. And here is a prophet of God looking to us at this pivotal moment and saying, why have you polluted the church of God? Not the Catholics, not the Presbyterians, you. So this is a problem occurring with us. And that's what he says here. And then all the same thing, blood crying from the ground, same thing. You adorn yourself with that which has no life, yet you suffer the hungry and the needy and the naked and the sick and the afflicted to pass you by, and you notice them not. Why? Because you have taught, for your money shall you retain a remission of your sin. Just give tithing, just give fast offerings, and then you can ignore the hungry, the needy, the naked, the sick. You can ignore those people on the street. Okay, because you're forgiven of your sins so long as you pay money to the church and tithing and fast offerings. Okay, why have you built up your secret abominations to get gain? Why have you done that priestcraft? And then the same language, cause the widows mourn for the Lord, orphans to mourn, and that the blood of their fathers and husbands are crying unto the Lord from the ground for vengeance against your heads. Behold, the sword of vengeance hangeth over you, and the time soon cometh that he will avenge the blood of the saints upon you. He won't suffer their cries any longer. And that is the snap. That's the snap. And that's what we're waiting for. And every single one of these is snapped off. And that one, the vapors of smoke one, man, that's one of those ones that a lot of people might maybe not pay as much attention to, but it's in there. Vapors of smoke in foreign lands. And so whenever, which doesn't happen every year, I'll tell you that. Whenever there is major fires and vapors of smoke coming down from Canada, which doesn't happen very often, especially you could say in the last 6 years, I start to, the hairs rise in the back of my neck a little bit more. So we right now, this going into this fall and this winter, brothers and sisters, all the boxes are checked. Literally all the boxes are checked. So like it could go down this fall and winter, and none of us can say that we didn't know. None of us can say that, well, we were missing a sign before that thing happened. None of us can know, or can make that excuse. It's there. So it's there. We have all of them, including the vapors of smoke. Probably should pay more attention to it. Probably should pay more attention to it. But do we? I don't think so. I don't think so. Anyway, hopefully that was good. All right. Yeah, it is finally raining. You got some rain down there too again. It's good. Okay. All right. So that's that. So that's the things in the world. That's the things in the world, the prophecies. That's where we are. And every single one of those is clicked off. So congratulations, we've not done that. Church updates. There's been some church updates, and there's the 25-minute lessons. That was the big one that I wanted to talk about. Just because I have some thoughts on this and a solution. So the church is clearly moving towards only having sacrament meeting on Sunday. We're just slowly moving there, and going to a 25-minute lesson, 25-minute lesson. It's really hard to say. Once again, I don't want to get myself in trouble, because people hear something and then once again make assumptions or interpret things. But you have the prophet of God come out and say we're going to go to the 2 hour thing, right? And people are like, oh, it's super inspired. It's super inspired, right? This is such a great idea. And then what? And then we complain about not having priesthood every single week, and then they go, okay, we'll go back to having priesthood every single week. But they can't go, well, we'll go back to the 3 hours. Why? Why? Because it'll make you look uninspired. It'll make you look stupid, right? And so you say, well, we can't just say, okay, well, this didn't work, because we should probably have priesthood every single week. We should probably have this every single week. And once again, the other big thing that happened during this, by the way, was there was a change in the temple recommend question. It's crazy how many people don't even know the temple recommend questions. Even people who are giving me the temple recommend sometimes don't know the temple recommend. I was with not that long ago. I think it was the first or second counselor of the bishopric. Really nice guy, and he's like, well, this temple recommend. We sat down, and he's like, well, you know these questions. You know this. It hasn't changed in like since you were baptized, like 30 years ago. And I was like, no, actually, the temple recommend has changed like 3 times in the last 5 years. And he was like, what? And so it's like it's funny because it's like I think we just kind of sleepwalk through the temple recommend. We don't understand or notice when there's changes. But one of the changes in the temple recommend might give a little insight onto a problem that the leadership is looking at or dealing with, and this is their solution. So you go to only a 2 hour Sunday, and you make alternating Sunday school and priesthood. What's a big problem that cropped up? Big problem that cropped up is that in the temple recommend question, it says, do you attend your priesthood meetings? That's what it says. And it specifically mentions priesthood because it's a priesthood responsibility to hopefully attend priesthood meetings, right? And so what ended up happening is that when you had every other week, right, priesthood and Sunday school, people were noticing pretty clearly that the Sunday school class was smaller than the priesthood class, in that certain people were just like, Sunday school's terrible, I'm just going to leave. And so like it turned into a 1 hour session for them, or at the very least they just wandered around in the halls, right? They wandered around the halls and talked to people because they just weren't interested in Sunday school. And this is a problem. And so you have people complaining about this, saying, hey, I don't like this, as well as tacked onto it the feminist side that are like, well, why are your priesthood meetings more important than ours? And the temple recommend question all of a sudden changes to, do you attend your meetings, or do you strive to attend your meetings, or whatever it changes to? It changes the language to just meetings. So in that same time they do that, and then they revert back to priesthood is every single week, and now it's 25 minutes. Um, I, I think if you combine some of the breadcrumbs that are left behind there, you start to get a mental image of, well, they couldn't just go back to 3 hours because that would make them look uninspired. But the only having priesthood every other week was creating problems. And so they changed the temple recommend, and now they're going to 25 minute, 25 minute. Okay. Um, and this, this will run into its own unique problems. And then where do you go from here? Where do you go from here? You can't get rid of Sunday school. You can't get rid of priesthood. You're not going to do this for a while and then be like, okay, now we're just going to get rid of Sunday school. And they've eliminated all the other options, right? So they can't just go back to 2 hours. They can't just go back to 3 hours, because I think we like this ongoing restoration. We like this idea of always moving forward. We like this, and I just don't see them ever being like, yeah, you know what, that didn't work out, and we're just going to go back to the way it was. We don't tend to do that. Even if we do that, we rename it. We'll have the 5-5-5 program, then we'll have the 3-3-3 program, and it's like this is literally the same program repackaged with a new name, because we really don't like the idea of showcasing that like we did something, it didn't quite work, and now we're like going to redo it in exactly the same way. And so, where is this headed? I'm telling you, this is headed to. There's only one way this can go, and that's that we no longer will even have Sunday school priesthood sessions, or what you're going to end up having is a short priesthood meeting, basically like you would normally have, or something like that. And you're going to have an even shorter sacrament meeting, and we're basically going to the point in time where it's like it's a 1 hour meeting. And the reason for it, there's so many reasons for it. And big parts of these reasons are legal battles. There was yet another case in which some man was caught sexually assaulting people. And it's becoming such a big deal in the church. And apparently, I didn't know this, but apparently priesthood leaders can still, even to this day, demand to have meetings with you completely alone, which is crazy, with how many sexual assault allegations things are happening. At which point in time, it's like, I don't want to sound weird. Once again, I don't want to get in trouble by saying this, but it's like the church should get sued in those cases. And so like we're putting ourselves in a position where it's like, where if we're saying it's okay for church leaders to force meetings and church force engagements where they're alone with people and sexual things happen, or they'll have their temple recommend removed, or they won't be viewed as a good member or whatever, it's like you're setting up a situation in which if something sexually does happen, the church 100% is liable and should be sued, because they've set up that situation. They're responsible for keeping the members safe. And so, as more and more of these things become more problems, and the church doesn't want to deal with this, and not only that, the shootings and all this stuff that happened at the church is going to start moving towards more of a 1 hour meeting, as these things progress. Twofold. One, we know that the church eventually is going to fold, right? It's going to fold up in the New Jerusalem, and it's going to basically be restored as the patriarchal order in the Church of the Firstborn. So, like as Elder Maxwell said, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is scaffolding for the patriarchal order, and when the time comes, the scaffolding, i.e., the church, will come down, right, once the building's built. And so we know that that's naturally the way it's headed. We've constantly said that it's supposed to be a or a home focus, church assisted, and so we're naturally moving towards that direction, taking down the scaffolding of the church, making things more homegrown, taking things away from the church, right? The responsibility, but also legally, it's becoming a legal battle, and these things are happening where it's like it's a sacrament. And not only that, if you think about it this way, if you only had a sacrament meeting, if you did go back to that, think about like how the temples used to be so big and so expensive, and then they got so cheap because we made things smaller. Imagine what could happen if you went to a 1 hour meeting, how much smaller your buildings, the imprint of your buildings immediately becomes. All of a sudden, that other stuff doesn't matter, and things like sexual assault, and all that stuff become so much more less of an issue, because everyone's in one room all together, with a million witnesses and so forth. So we're naturally moving more in that direction anyway. And so I don't even know, like, how long this 25-minute lesson thing will go. Maybe the world will end, but I don't know how long this will actually go before we phase out of it, because this will create even more friction than the 2 hour thing did. Um, because of all the reasons that we've already talked about. But anyway, I just wanted to say here's the solution to the 25-minute lesson thing. Here, and like I've thought about this a lot. Um, People can take it or leave it. I don't really care. But I've thought about this a lot, and I thought, how would you solve this problem and all of the problems that you have? And the solution is this: you set up your 25-minute lesson exactly like I set up the Three Brothers Spiritual Thought. You literally set it up exactly the same way. So basically, you show up, the meeting starts, you have 25 minutes, and the very first thing you do is the follow up. So you follow up on last week's commitment and you follow up on it, and you have to hold people to that. So you say, brothers and sisters, the last, or brother or sisters, right? Whatever class you're in. Excuse me. You say, look, the last week's commitment was try to find one act of service that you can do for your family this week or whatever. Does any, and then you as the teacher go, me personally, I did this. Here's my report on that. And it worked out really well. And then you ask the group, does anybody else have anything they would like to report on the fulfillment of last week's commitment? And if someone raises their hand, like, I have something to say. My Susan cousin, whatever, is moving into the ward. And it's like, no, 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 sorry. I love you. God bless you. Shut up. You have to be willing to do this. You're not going to be able to let people blab in this 25 minute. Oh, no, no, sorry. We'll get to that. We'll get to announcements and stuff. But like right now, does anybody have anything they'd like to report on the fulfillment of this commitment? No? Okay. Then you immediately go into your spiritual thought. Okay, this week, I've summarized this week down, this lesson down into a spiritual thought like we do in the Three Brothers. It's 5 minutes. You read it, you go through it, and then you say, this is the commitment for this next week, tied specifically to this lesson. Will we agree to do this? And everyone hopefully says yes. And then you say, great. I can promise you as you do these things, we're going to see this. Okay. Now, the rest of the class is yours. And then set it up like a fast and testimony meeting. You'll, at that point in time, maybe have 10 to 15 minutes left, right? It's 25-minute lesson. You've gone maybe 10 minutes. You got 15 minutes left, right? You've maybe gone 10 minutes. And people then can raise their hand and can say, like, well, I learned this week, or I like this commitment, or I like this spiritual thought, or and you can then talk or announce for the last 15 minutes, and then you can be looking at the clock and then go, okay, this is the last person. Sorry, whoever else is raising your hands, this is the last person. We're out of time, so we'll go you, and then you're done. You wrap up and you leave. Because if you try to set up any other lesson any other way, you'll never get through it. It'll always be a complete mess. You can't have a lesson and have it broken up. You can't. It won't work. I'm sorry. You won't even be able to get anything out. It won't work. You'll say, the lesson this week's on this. I had this really amazing thought this week, and I was thinking about, and some person's hand's already going to go up, and he's going to be like, I was a football coach for 30 years, '06, and worked in the police department, and I don't even know why I'm telling the story, but the Spirit's working on me. And it's just going to go off, and you're not going to get anywhere. So like you're going to have to limit that to the very end of the class. So you're going to have to start off with the commitment from last week and the follow up. You're going to have to go into the spiritual thought. You're going to have to hit the commitment, and then you're going to have to just hand it over to the rest of the group. They want to talk. They want to give announcements. They want to share stuff. They want to share what they learn. For the rest of the time they can, but you've already got all the other stuff knocked out of the way, and it won't matter. That's the solution for this, because if you read Preach My Gospel, if you read these things, there are things that you need. You say, well, the lesson should be focused on Jesus Christ. Okay, how? What does that mean? Well, you read Preach My Gospel, you read these quotes, and you learn that if you don't commit people to anything, you don't commit them to repent. And if we're not repenting and acting, we're not actually coming any closer to the Savior. And when we fail to give people a commitment, we fail to invite them to come unto Christ. So a huge part of these lessons, if you make it shorter, you cannot get rid of those two key aspects. You can't get rid of the follow-up of the last week's commitment, and you can't get rid of this week's commitment. So you can't get rid of those two things. And if you let the lesson meander too much, you're never going to be able to really fully do either of those. So you're going to have to do the follow-up. You're going to have to give your spiritual thought. based off lesson, and then you're gonna have to recommit and then dump it off to the class and basically turn it into a uh, a Sunday school, basically, where or a testimony meeting where basically people can give announcements, talk about what they learned, and then end it. Like, as far as I've seen it, this is, I believe, this is an actual solution that would actually work and still fulfill everything. Any other combination, any other thing you do, I know I've done probably about 1,000, no joke, role plays in my head just thinking about this solution. This is just how my brain works. And I'm telling you, I know pretty effectively how most of these lessons are going to go most across the United States if they don't set it up like this. And you're gonna it's gonna be bad, and it's just gonna be bad. So anyway, I thought, that's a solution. I'm obviously not called to be a lessons teacher. I'm not called into this, but anyway, I just was thinking about this problem and thinking, like, if I was called to teach, if I was called as like, any of these things, like, how would you solve this problem? This is how you would solve it. And also with AI and like how I make the visual with the spiritual thought of the week and the commitment, that's something that, like, I don't know how all wards work with like printers anymore, because like everything seems to be trying to cut costs. So I don't even know if you could print anything anymore. But even if you weren't printing those off and like giving a copy of like a paper for each person in the room, most of these groups seem to run on an app for the church where they can like share information with each other as an elders quorum or relief society or something. And that's exactly where I would just post every single week that visual and just remind people, like, this is the commitment this week, this was the spiritual thought, like, how are we doing this week? Are we trying to keep this commitment, right? Are we trying to keep this thing? And we're going to have reports on Sunday. I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say on Sunday, right? And anyway, and you could actually crank out a pretty decent thing in 25 minutes with a good follow-up. Maybe you get like one, two, three people that actually did the thing and they have a really good story to share or testimony tied to it. You get a new spiritual thought, you get a new commitment, and then maybe get some announcements or whatever. Anyway, people can do whatever they want. I'm obviously going to show up to the classes regardless because I'm trying to be an obedient person, but if we want the lessons to mean anything, I thought about this an awful lot, and I do not see how you can cram all the key most important aspects of a lesson any shorter than that. Anything less, you're going to miss a follow up. You're going to miss actually giving a commitment. You're going to actually miss giving a coherent spiritual thought tied to actually the lesson at all. Okay. And so, and if you don't have any of those things, like, what are we doing? What are we doing? And so that is my solution to that. So people, maybe I'll talk to Topher about that because he's the Elder Squad president there. Like, that's exactly. And by the way, which is why I've been thinking about this. Topher's obviously a good friend of mine. He's thinking about how we can implement this, and so that's exactly what I would suggest for him. Right? It's pretty easy. So when somebody's assigned to teach, you basically say, okay, you're the assigned teacher this week. Come up with a a 2 to 5 minute spiritual thought tied to what you learned this week in this lesson, and a commitment that you can commit the group to do this week. That's it. And and it becomes a lot easier for people to actually do that. And that's all you got to do. And you're just kickstarting the thing. And then you do the follow up. You have whoever it is teaching the lesson do that. And then it's like, that's great. We commit to, okay, anybody else wanna, and then you're done. Anyway. Um, and that's that. So anyway, I thought that would be something I would point out as well. Maybe I'll talk to Topher a little bit more about that as well. Maybe he'd be interested in a little bit more talking about that. But anyway, that's a solution to that problem if you're interested in it. Okay. And if you haven't thought about this, if you haven't thought at all about how you're going to transition to these 25-minute lessons and still make them worth anything, man, it's going to get ugly. It's going to get ugly in a month, because, like, if you think that you're going to be able to transfer the way you teach, just make it shorter or whatever in the new way, oh my, you are going to be in for a headache. Okay. And so Oh, and apparently this week, fifth Sunday, next week, they're going to be showing some videos on this. Did somebody just comment that? No? Oh, someone said that. Ashley just found that out. So anyway, so apparently the fifth Sunday, they're going to be showing some videos on this. And if the church has a very specific way that they want you to do it, obviously, throw out everything I just said and follow the church. Um, obviously, hopefully the church has comes up with a solution that's a pretty close to what I suggested. Because anything else, if they're just like, here's what you do, you just sit down and say, come up with one or two questions to start a spiritual thought to start the conversation. It's like, oh, God help us. It's just, oh man, this is not going to be good. So anyway, and maybe you have the best Relief Society and the best Eldritch Quorum in the world or whatever, and like you're not worried at all. Um, okay, but I know how this is going to work worldwide. Okay, so anyway, the next thing I would say here, anyway, so that's my suggestion on that one. And the last thing, okay, Priestcraft Cabal update. So this was kind of man, this was kind of a one that we have talked about the Priestcraft Cabal. We've talked about Unrighteous Dominion. We've talked about flabby priesthood holders that want their Ford Broncos. We've talked a lot about this stuff a lot. Apparently, people don't realize I'm talking about myself. But we've talked about this a lot. We've talked about the Priestcraft Cabal. We know who we're talking about here with these people. I am officially ready to announce defeat. Like at this point in time, I'm officially like ready to not raise the white flag. I'm not surrendering to them, but I am at this point in time. It's like like the Mormon and Moroni situation where it's like back in 2020, I said this is a problem. It's becoming a problem. People need to watch out for this. We need to solve this problem. And maybe 2 to 3 years later, it was like, we're losing this, folks. We're losing this. And horribly losing this battle here. And then 2 to 3 years later, I'm now here at this point in time where I'm ready to say, the social media space is lost. I'm at the point in time where it's like, what it's like? It's kind of like when I was growing up listening to all the boomers talk about pornography, and it's like they were like, when you were growing up, they're like, well, if pornography is just that one click away, right? Like you accidentally click and all of a sudden you're there, right? And it was like, it was like you do realize like within 5-10 years, like we're at a point in time where it's like you scroll Facebook and there's pornography. Like it isn't like, oh, well, it's just one click away, and oh, you just accidentally click, and it's like, what do you do when that happens? It's like you scroll. If you decide to scroll Facebook, you're gonna see something. I'm not even on Instagram. Like, God help you if you're doing something on Instagram or the other places, but it's like your advice or you talking to people about pornography. It's like some guy being like, well, when we phone, you spin the rotary on, and it's like you grandpa, like you are so out of this. Like you are so far gone with this that like you've lost the plot. That's like 12 generations ago. Um, well, guess what? It's like that with Priestcraft now. Like it's like that with Priestcraft now. It's like that with being online now. The social media space is completely lost. It's completely lost. It's full of Priestcraft and all of its variants. Priestcraft apologetics, Priestcraft nonprofit, Priestcraft selling my opinions and hypothesis, Priestcraft I'm a BYU professor, and therefore I can provide another spin to this. So I'm going to dress up, in a diaper and thing and go to the Temple Square. I'm going to be an idiot. Um, it's just Priestcraft this, Priestcraft that, Priestcraft that, and it's completely lost. It's you know what else it's like? It's like public school. It's like that. And I know some of you still send your kids to public school, and I once again, I'm not trying to offend people, but if you're doing that and you have any other option, even just any other option, you don't love your kids. You can get mad at me all you want, but like That's simply just true. If you've exhausted every single option and you can't homeschool your kids, fine. Like I am like, okay. But if it's like, if you can and you don't love your kids. And I am prepared to say that before gods and angels. You don't love your kids. The public school systems, and not only that, the universities, BYU, they're lost. They're lost. You are not going to get the same son or daughter back when you send them out. They're lost. You're sending them out there to a losing battle, and they gain nothing. They gain nothing. You say, well, they're a light to the world. They're a light to the world. Okay, all right. How many people did your kid baptize in high school? Hmm? How many kids did your kid baptize in high school? Oh, wait. How many? You baptized a bunch? Well, I sent them out to public school because they're to be a light of the world. Okay. Did you baptize anybody? Okay. What, one of you? One out of 10,000 of you baptized somebody? Okay. And how many of you lost your kids doing that? That cost benefit ratio is making no sense. It's making no sense. You're going to lose your kids for nothing, and it's not even necessary. And it's surely not a commandment. It is not a commandment to go to public school. It is not. It is not. And it's like that. You send your kid to public school, you send your kid to these universities. Okay. Kiss them goodbye. Bye bye. Because you're not getting the same kid back, and it will almost certainly be worse or way worse than what you did. It's now like that with the Priestcraft Cabal. Um, you've lost it. And if you allow your kid to scroll, you allowed your kid, and I'm even saying this from like what people might think are safe Priestcraft channels. And it's like, you're going to lose your kids. You're going to lose. We've already lost the battle. We've lost the spiritual war. These kids are getting stupid, and we're listening to these apologetics, we're listening to these things, and they're not teaching the gospel right. They're not teaching it fully. You can't do it. You can't dump this off on this anymore. You can't have your kids on this stuff anymore. Priestcraft has won. The social media space is completely lost. There is nothing left. They have snuffed out everything that is non-priestcrafty. They've snuffed out everything. And now they're using Alinsky tactics to keep it that way. Alinsky tactics is what? Well, I have 7,000 subscribers. You have 200. I have 80,000 subscribers and all these views. You have 500. So obviously I'm in the right. Obviously you're wrong because I have more people. That's Alinsky tactics. That's communism. That's rules for radicals. That's what you do, where you say the many are all together because we all like priestcraft. We like the spoils of these things. We like this, and so now we're going to leverage our morality in numbers on your face to squelch you and shut you out and to push you out of the public space. It's Alinsky tactics, and that's now the position we've gotten to. 2020 in 2020. And you know what's so crazy? Priestcraft has gotten so big and it's gotten like that it's squishing other priestcrafters out of the market. Back in 2020, I was, or Zion or Bust, not me. I'm not obviously putting videos out there anymore like that. I'm on this, my personal journal page. But that channel was just as big as Walter Palmer. It was just as big as all those other channels in 2020. It was just as big. And Walter Palmer, for example, or PP, was Preacher Palmer, was just as big as any of these things. And what ended up happening is that some of these other big name people started coming in. So these lower grade, you could say, priestcrafters that basically were doing what I'm doing, sitting in front of a camera. They would have, if you were lucky, they'd have a paper that they were reading. But most of them would just read an article or just talk into a camera. Those people got snuffed out, and they got snuffed out by what? Big name priestcraft. And how does big name priestcraft work? Well, it works like the Stick of Joseph. It works like True Millennial. And what ends up happening is that the ground game, the people like myself, although I wasn't getting paid, I wasn't doing it, but like the ground game showcases that there's a market there. Okay. But then what ends up happening is that people who already have resources come in and capitalize on that and make even more resources. So basically, like, um, poor people find out, hey, we need, like, these people need stuff moved back and forth. So they basically get some screws and wood and they create a wheelbarrow and they start moving stuff back and forth and showcase there is a big demand for this, right? And people like Preacher Palmer and so forth got money doing it, got money doing it. Well, then what ends up happening is that a company or somebody that already has money looks at that and goes, oh, and then what they do is they come into the market with a Ford truck. They invest $20,000 on a Ford truck, and then they just start saying, hey, we'll move your stuff. We'll do this too. And they blow out the other people with their wheelbarrows because they could come in with the truck. Does that make sense? And so you have these people like the Stick of Joseph who come from very wealthy, very Babylonian, very much living wealthy above your neighbor, $1 million home. Like that's the kind of rich bloodline that these people came from. And they saw an opportunity and said, hey, there's something here. We can make money doing this. We can make a living doing this. And they come into it and they can drop $10,000 on a studio. They can drop $20,000 on ads and videos and things. They can drop that money. And what ends up happening is they blow out the Preacher Palmers. They blow out this other thing, and then they create a priestcraft cabal. True Millennial, same thing. In fact, he came out in some of his early videos and said, I have made my fortune in doing this, in making videos and editing and stuff. And so I saw a need here, and I thought, you know what? I can use my skills here to help over here. And he comes in with his, once again, same thing, $10,000 studios, $20,000 studios, all the programs, all the know-how, and you just blow out all the competition. And now they're getting all the views, like 80,000 views, 100,000 views, and making tons of money, right? Like the Stick of Joseph. It was reported that and I have the reportings that they had said that they had made $300,000 profit on their last book of sale alone. Just I'm sure it was profound what they had to say, but it's like they had the money to invest up front to wipe these people out. And so in 2020, we had a lot of that ground force. Like there was what was that guy's name? Marco Piero? Guerrero. That's right. Marco Guerrero. Same thing. Guy that was just talking to his microphone and it was camera, zero budget, nothing there. Really tried and he made an impact, showcase that there was a market there. Walter Palmer, same thing. Troy from the millennial, whatever, the last dispensation. There was a lot of stuff going on there, and showcased that there was an absolute market to be made, an absolute killing to be made in priestcraft as the market went online. And then there was the introduction of third-party people that had resources that knew this, like even by the way, people like Scripture Central and stuff, people that already had established priestcraft and systems set up, you could say, that came in, invested that money, and then just blew everyone out. I mean, Troy from the last dispensation, he went and had dental work done. He tried to get facelifts and stuff and changed how he looked. He tried to create a studio in his, 2-bedroom mobile home. Like he tried the best he could to try to keep up with that and couldn't. And even came out and said, like, I don't even care if you call it priestcraft. I want to make the money. Can I get invited to the big boys club? And he just wasn't invited. And now there's a priestcraft cabal. Where it's like these people who already had money. In fact, one of them, what's her name? Apple Pie. Looks like a giant apple pie. Rapalai. I mean, even her husband was the one of the head people on Scripture Central. So like, I don't know, a little bit of keeping it in the family there, right? Oh man, of all the people in the world that I could hire to do this, of all the talented, charismatic, knowledgeable people that, oh, it just happens to be my wife. Yeah, my wife. We're going to have her do those videos. Give me a break. And they had all the resources from Scripture Central. You had all the camera systems already set up, all that money, all that leveraging, and then you basically, once you build her up, you then dump her off and make her independent. Now she's her own thing. You know what it's like? You know the way it's like? It's like how rappers, they'll become big and they'll make a bunch of money, like P. Diddy or whatever. I don't know modern rappers. And then they'll get their best friend on the record to do a song with them. And then they'll be like, oh yeah, it's P. Diddy and, Shalom. The two rapper buddies. And then once Shalom over here, whatever, gets big enough, then all of a sudden he breaks off and he does his own thing. And it's like it's a system in which friends will enrich friends and make each other popular. And it's not based off of God. It's not based off of the Holy Spirit, God forbid. It's not based off of anything other than a secret combination. That's literally what we got going on here. And that was going on. That started happening, like I said, between 2023 to maybe 2024. That started becoming a big deal. You saw these other people starting showing up. And then by now, 2026, wiped them out. Even Walter Palmer hit like gone way down his views and stuff. And now even he's kind of complaining about like how things are operating and yada yada. And you have the Stick of Joseph people who, by the way, who were already filthy rich. So they were already filthy rich, money in the family. What's it called when you keep the money in the family? Nepotism and favoritism, like flowing out their ears. And they're sitting there like selling crystal Jesus art, and propaganda and priestcraft and crap and promotions throughout their entire video. Now they're already worth they, all they have to do is wait for their parents to die, and they'll be fine. But they're like, no, what we need to do is get $300,000 on a book, and then we need to get all these promotions and more money, and it's like they just wipe everyone else out. And so now everyone's a part of either one of those things, and Priestcraft is completely one. It's entrenched. The amount of money that Emily Bell Freeman makes on these things is just insane. These like this priesthood men group that's coming out and the merch they sell, and they start getting $1 to $2 to $3 a month subscriptions, and they can get 100,000 people on these things. It's like the amount of money that Emily Bell Freeman makes on her app alone, which costs no money to maintain, and it's just insane. So anyway, a long-winded rant to basically just say it's over. I'm willing to publicly acknowledge defeat. They've won. Priestcraft has won. It's completely and utterly won. This is not something, though, that we should be proud of or happy of, because this is one of the last big things to check off the list before destruction comes. This was those things that Mormon was talking about. We have officially sold ourselves for that which will canker. It's over. It is completely over. There is no turning that around. And if we've learned anything from the COVID vaccine, if a prophet of God comes out and asks us to do something that we don't like, we will ignore him, and it doesn't matter. So there is nothing that can turn this around at this point in time. Even if a prophet of God stood up and said, you know what, this needs to end. This is priestcraft. It's like the name of the church. It has gotten so bad that, like, even if a prophet of God stood up and said, stop calling ourselves Mormon, there's no turning it around. There's no turning it around. It won't happen, right? It just won't happen. Like that's basically the point we're at with priestcraft. There's no turning it around. It is here to stay, at least until the destruction, and it's one of the last signs and one of the things to click it over. We've officially wiped out whatever we have, whatever hope we have of fighting this back. You're not going to win it. It's so entrenched and so more than calling ourselves Mormon ever was. It's such a part of our culture that I worry to death that as part of going to the 25-minute lessons and as part of moving in that direction, you're going to see more and more of hopefully not the church, God forbid the church, start recommending us go to priestcraft and YouTube channels to supplement our quote unquote learning. Or God forbid, even worse, the church starting to create open partnerships with people. So they start to have more apostles sitting down with people like the Stick of Joseph, or sitting down with, and creating these podcasts in which they get money doing. like if we start seeing more and more of those kind of connections, it's like, God help us. God help us, and the wrath that's coming down upon us. All we can do is just detach ourselves from that as much as we can to avoid the plague that is coming. Okay. Um, but like it's at that point in time where it's like I don't think I'm posting this stuff online for me and my journal. That's always the way it's been. But like any sort of just even pie in the sky hope that you or I might have had that we could have an impact and actually change the direction, get people more thinking celestial, less about gain, less about priestcraft, idolatry, and secret combinations. It like I'm just telling you, like it's gone. Like we've reached the watershed moment or whatever it's called. The X's have all been passed. Uh, Destruction imminent. Like it's over. Brace for impact, as Glenn Beck likes to say. Brace for it's over. And so all you can do now is protect yourself from it. And the next wave of stuff that's really going to be something that you're going to have to protect yourself from, and I don't know how you're going to do it or what you're going to do, is your young men's presidents, your young women's presidents, your Relief Society presidents, and your Elders Quorum presidents infusing priestcraft into their lessons. And that's what you're going to have to deal with. And more importantly, or more specifically, or more dangerously, infusing it into the lessons to your kids. Because you as an adult obviously can just listen to it or combat it or just say that's ridiculous. But your kids will be left completely exposed. When the teacher sits down and goes, well, you know what? Like, the Book of Mormon wasn't translated correctly. And when it says we're saved by grace after all we can do, what it really means is saved by what it should say. The correct translation is saved by grace despite all we can do. And all of a sudden, which is 100% wrong, 1,000,000% wrong, entirely now shooting through the church via priestcraft, just like the proving contraries. And now it's being infused into your children and ruining their mind. That one little thing you don't think is a big deal. The difference between the saved by grace after all we can do versus saved by grace despite all we can do is a catastrophic difference in viewpoint, which determines our desire, which determines our actions. If your kid gets in his mind, it doesn't matter what I do, that doesn't matter at all. I'm saved by grace despite all I do. If that gets ingrained in your kid's head and he buys into it, he could be set for destruction his whole life. Like that, and you don't realize, oh, that's not that big a deal. That is a massive deal. Because if you start to think, I don't have to change, I don't, because it doesn't matter anyway, it's pointless anyway. I don't have to repent. I don't. You have crippled that person for their life. And so we think all these things aren't that big a deal, like these proven contraries aren't that big a deal. They're massive deals. And not only have we lost this space online, so I'm saying Facebook, YouTube, it's lost. I'm never going to monetize my stuff, so it's never going to be promoted. We're going to continue to get our 200 to 500 views on the Three Brothers and stuff. I've completely, if you have any pie in the sky, like, oh, we're going to turn this around, and it's gone. If you think you're going to go off there and convince people, does that mean don't go off and be a watchman? No, I'm not saying that, but like, I think temper your expectations, maybe, and get you and your family off of these things. Like, you need to get your families off of Facebook. You need to get your families off of Instagram and so forth. Like Discord, Zion or Bust. As much as people hate, the unrighteous hate they keep throwing at us, is one of the best places that you can be. It's safe, it's faith promoting, it's a refuge from the world in which we can all come together and complain about stuff together and build each other up at the same time. Like, is it okay to complain about stuff? Yes. You need a space that you can come together and be like, man, I'm just tired. I'm tired, man. Like, my sister is now raising a non-binary kid, and it's just like, I'm just exhausted. I'm to the point of tears, and it's like, am I the only one left who believes in this stuff? You need a safe space that you can go to and you can say these things, especially when your families become more and more crazy and entrenched in these things. You need a space that you can just come to and then be surrounded by people that go, no, you're in the right. Jesus is the way. Obey the commandments. No, You're in the right. It's saved by grace after all you can do. You need spaces in which you can keep up the righteous momentum with people who believe the same things. You need it. And Facebook, YouTube, they're lost. You show scrolling through that, it's just a lot. Like you don't find diamonds in the rough anymore. They don't exist. You find is just the same things, the priestcraft, and even from people that are just crazy. Like, what was that guy's name, Ashley? That's like believes that God told him that Trump is the marred servant. Oh my God. Huh? Kelly Smith. God bless you, Kelly Smith. Like, even that, you like all you're gonna find. You're just scrolling through. It's just God spoke to me and he gave me the answers. And Trump is the marred servant. Buy my book over here. Buy my book over here. That's all. Like, there's no diamonds in the rough anymore. You just have people that are trying to build a platform, trying to build an organization, a quote unquote nonprofit, just trying to fraud and practice priestcraft and build themselves up. That's all you're gonna find anymore. That's it. That's all you're gonna get online anymore. So just abandon ship. Abandon ship. It's just you're gonna be edified there anymore. You're not finding people anymore. The people that are worth saving aren't there anymore. They've left. They're not there anymore. You know how many people I run into now, millennials even, that are just like, yeah, I just don't. I've actually cut myself off from my phone. They understand. The elect are cutting themselves off from social media. It's crazy. But like the good Gentiles that I know off in the world are cutting themselves off from social media. I just don't trust Fox News anymore. I never trust CNN. I don't trust Glenn Beck anymore. I don't trust the news. I'm just cutting myself off. I'm being swindled. I'm being lied to by everyone. So I'm just cutting myself off. I'm leaving social media. I might show up on Facebook occasionally and be like, here's my family. Or I had a birth. Here's my kid. Or happy birthday. But like otherwise I've completely abandoned ship. And that's what the elect are doing. And I'm at that point in time where I'm officially like, Priestcraft Cabal, it's won. It's won. Congratulations, you've won. And it's gotten to a point in time where Kim, God bless her soul, none of us are trying to fight her. None of us are trying to pick a fight with her. None of us are saying anything mean to her. And Kim, in a comment to me, can say on her own post, can say, Micah, this is why everyone hates you. Let me backtrack. What I said. So I said, Pre- Elder Razband, not me, Elder Razband said that that getting the COVID vaccine was a litmus test for following the prophet. I didn't say that. I have the video. Razband did. And I just pointed out that Razband said that. I didn't. So stop getting mad at like don't get mad at me. I'm just quoting Elder Razband on this, and I don't believe you're going to go to hell if you didn't take the vaccine. I didn't say that, but I did say that at the time that the prophet of God did say do it, and the apostles including Elder Razband were saying that's what was going on. That's all I'm saying. That's all it was. That was all the conversation was. And that we love you, Kim, and I'm not mad at you. And Kim can respond to me and say, Micah, this is why people hate you and no one likes you. Because you're trying to take away people's agency. And you think you're better than other people and know better for them than what they know for themselves. Now think about that. I have my worst enemies, the worst enemies to God. Can you imagine that? Like, can you imagine going up to, like, I can't even imagine being that cruel to someone ever. Going up to somebody and being like, yeah, this is why everyone hates you. This is why no one likes you. I could never say that to anybody. And then to say, because I was saying that we should follow the prophet, we still have agency, you can choose, but we should follow the prophet. And Elder Razband was the one who said that I'm now saying I hate agency and no one should have a choice and that this is why everyone hates me. And everyone, and people were hearting and liking Kim's comment. Now think about that. Think about how much priestcraft is won when they can come out and they can say This is why you suck. This is why everyone hates you. This is why no one likes you, because you're saying that we should follow the prophet. And people are like, yay, you go, Kim. I felt the spirit of the Lord there. You're standing on the side of truth in Christ, because I can feel it in you. They've won. Folks, when they can come out, when the stick of Joseph can come out and say, yeah, I just talked to the three brothers, which is basically what they said. I just talked to three brothers, and they were a little bit aggressive with me. And so me and my brother just mocked them and said horrible things about them and laughed at them behind their back, but didn't actually send the comments to them. We just wrote it out, laughed at them, and then deleted it, and then said we're never going to talk to them again. And people heard that and said, "Oh, good for you. What a God-fearing person. What a good human being you are." So you're admitting to mocking somebody and thinking you're better than them because you have more subscriptions and you're richer, and you laughed at them behind their back, but you didn't even bother to do it to their face, and then you left. Oh, what a thank you. Good answer. Good answer there, Stick of Joseph. And they're paying tickets to see this. Brothers and sisters, Priestcraft Cabal's won. It's over. If we've gotten to a point in time where your favorite Priestcrafters can get away with that publicly, and people like myself are getting crucified for saying, hey, all them flabby, unrighteous priesthood holders that want their Ford Broncos talking about himself and get crucified, man, we've lost this. We've lost this. And so I'm at a point in time in 2026 to just concede. It's over. Get yourself off of Facebook. You're wasting your time. I will get on Facebook, and when I scroll, it's always a disaster. When I go try to find stuff, it's always a disaster. I never find diamonds in the rough. There's never anything good there. It's a waste of time. And I'm at that point in time where it's like I'm ready to just post stuff and leave. Because and knowing that the only people who are willing to engage anymore are people who want to debate you, people who want to get mad at you, get angry, defend their favorite priestcrafter, defend being dishonest, defend people saying that this is why people hate you. And not only that, like, oh my goodness, Kim, like, can you just say you don't like me and you hate me? Can you just be honest? Like this is why no one likes you and everyone hates you. Okay, so you don't like me and you hate me. Okay, thank you. I don't hate you. Um, but but man, I felt the spirit so strong. Um, we've lost. So basically, my thing on the priestcraft is we've reached that point in time, like Mormon. Like when Mormon was like, okay, I'm gonna try to lead the armies, I'm gonna try to turn this thing around, right? And it gets to a point in time where Mormon's like, it's over. It's over. And then Mormon just leaves and he writes his books, and he just basically makes sure his life's in order before the end. That's where we're at. Brothers and sisters, it's over. It's time to leave the army. Um, it's time to leave that social space. It's time to homeschool your kids, and it's time to start making your journals. It's trying to start making your gold plates, your history, your spiritual experiences, your testimonies, your good fruit. It's time to record all that, get it in one place, and get ready for the final battle. Get ready for the exodus, as it were, right? And then Mormon comes out for the last la la, the last fight, and says, "Yep, okay, well, I know I'm gonna die, but I've compiled everything. I've done the best I can with that, and time's up." That's where we're at right now. And so I would spend less time trying to combat. This is not just. I'm not talking to me. I'm talking to anybody. The 200 to 500 people that still are part of Zion or Bust, and it's just like, be a watchman, do what you need to do, but stop. We need to stop trying to think we're going to convince other people. Like, we need to just testify on our own pages, on our own things, and move on. Like, going on to other people's videos, other people's posts, and like thinking we're going to convince anyone, including their brainwashed, delusional followers. It's just it's only gonna make things worse moving forward. I believe. I think it's over. Um, so I would say focus on yourself. It's the time of Mormon. It's the time of Mormon. Time to retreat. Time to leave that army in that capacity and get things ready for the end. Right. Anyway, so that's what I would say about that. Anyway, apple pie. Yeah, and uh the hinge point. That's a great point there. About bringing up the hinge point. 2020 was a hinge point in the history of the church, and a hinge point is when we have to decide stuff, and we've made a decision. And I would say by 2026, the decision's been made. We've chosen destruction. We've chosen destruction, and that's okay. We knew that. Yeah, it's kind of like Mormon, right? Mormon read Nephi. He read the prophecies, obviously, so he knew eventually that was going to happen. He just hoped it wouldn't. And I've read the prophecies. I know what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen. I just kind of hoped it wouldn't, you know? So we know what's going to happen. We know what's going to happen with the redemption of Zion. We know what's going to happen for this, but it's like, man, uh, it's time to just move on. Wrapping it up. Okay. Yeah, the hinge point's over. It's over. We made the decision. We are headed for destruction. Okay. Um, okay, last one here. That a couple things here. Just family updates for those who aren't familiar. A couple things that are kind of interesting that I thought maybe people will be interested in, maybe not. Um, is that Ashley is pregnant, and everything seems to have. We had to do the in vitro fertilization for this one, and it was a big thing. And in this in it's funny because people ask like, how do you feel about that? Like with because it's like, what about all those embryos that you that you have to kill? Like, isn't that abortion too? And it's like, well, in our case, all the eggs dead but one. So like, so it's like, so not as so much of a problem for us. It showcased perfectly why infertility was an issue with us. So eggs, we had some problem with them eggs. So anyway, we got one, and it's in, and her name is going to be Zoe, and she's going to be born in December, and so we're excited for that. That would be a fourth, and so Ashley will be pregnant with her fourth going into the fall winter. So I thought that's pretty cool. People might be interested in that. Don't really care, but maybe people will be interested in knowing the little update in our family. My son is going to be getting the priesthood hopefully this winter, and my daughter's going to be baptized, turning 8 next year or next month, and in September. So hopefully that goes smoothly and is a good experience for her. And we also are in the process. Oh, so we also got grapes for the first time this year. So around our house here, last year we had to have our septic replaced because we moved here, and obviously the septic was destroyed, and we didn't know that. And the health and people were like, "Oh, you got the wrong septic in here. You only have a one tank. You have a 5-bedroom home. You need a bigger tank." And so it's like, all right, $45,000 later, we finally got the septic, and like they really damaged our berry patch. So this year we kind of got it a little bit better, but all of our mulberry trees, I think all four of them died. The other two in the back, did they ever come back? So I think all four of our mulberry trees bit it because of it, which it's sad. But so anyway, this year it's looking a little bit better here, but than last year, but still not great. Still not a great visual. But the grapes, we finished the grapes this year, and they look gorgeous. So like I'm really pleased with how that ends up looking. And so we got some things cleaned up. Hopefully, we're going to be able to finish some other projects here in the next couple days. And so if you're on Discord, we like to post these things in their pictures. We encourage other people to do that too. It's fun to see what other people are doing with farmsteading and like, vegetables and stuff. That, it's fun to show off your vegetables for some reason. I don't know. It just is. So show us your big, large zucchinis, like pictures. That's fun. The other thing that I would say here is that my family and I are Going to be moving and then thus moving our records. So that's in the works. We're pretty much decided that that is happening. So we're currently, it's a really weird situation here. Family update. Not that anybody really cares, but we're Ashley actually got a job as pharmacist manager up in Houghton Lake, and they made her work. They made her work every other Sunday, and basically we lived like that for a while, and it was really just sucked, having this every other Sunday church. We don't like that. We want to go every week and have everyone there, and so we talked to her boss, and we worked out this thing where she could work every single Saturday, but have Sundays off, but would need to be closer to her work. And so anyway, it's been this, and so we've been spending one week actually in Midland, and then one week up at Harrison up here. And so we've been, because that's closer to Ashley's work, and we've been trying to get our records actually transferred to Harrison so that we could, because we have to go to Harrison at least one week because that's closer to Ashley's work because of the situation we worked out with Ashley being able to go to church. Um, but we wanted to have our records moved to the Harrison branch so that we could go there every week and get calling so we wouldn't have to split this. But it's looking like we were told that there would be no problem and that they were going to actually move our records, and then it seems like that might not be happening anymore. And we're just tired of not being in a ward, and so the only real solution then is to move to Houghton Lake, which is where Ashley works, and just have our records moved up there. And so we're going to be probably doing that too. So we drove past the branch. Actually, we went up there. We were looking at some of the properties that we were looking at up there. We've been actually the last 2 days we've driven up there and looked around, and because Ashley has a couple days off, and we drove by the branch up there, and it's like so tiny. It's like so tiny. It looks like an old Pizza Hut they redecorated. Like it doesn't even look like a church building. It's so tiny. It has a garage door on one side of it. That's crazy. But anyways, we drove by the branch on that is up there at Houghton Lake and stuff. So anyway, that's where we're going to be. So hey, if you're ever in Houghton Lake area in the next couple months, Ashley and I might be up there, or we would be up there, and there'll only be apparently, I don't even know, 20 people. It seems like a very tiny branch. So anyway, that's a family update there. Am I missing anything? Got a kid being born. Anyway, project updates. I don't think I'm missing anything with the family updates. Huh? What about Raven? He's sick again? Yeah, Raven keeps, like, what's crazy is that, like, about 6 months ago now, 8 months ago, we had some problems. Yeah, all these things seem to kind of come at once, and we had all these things that just happened to hit all at once in January around that time. A lot of external things, and my poor little cat Raven, he got sick. He lived, but he got sick, and now I'm having all of these weird things happening all at once again. A lot of very stressful thing, and now Raven got sick again a little bit. So anyway, he's on antibiotics again. Hopefully he'll be fine. But I don't know why it all seems to just hit at once. Or my cat's a super empath, and yeah, he does love me. This is a very nice cat. So I start to get like depressed and sad, and he's like, "Why am I alive?" And I'm like, "No, Raven, don't leave me, you stupid cat." And he's like, "Why? It's so sad." I don't know. Maybe he's a super empath. I don't know. So hopefully everything's okay with him. Um, but yeah. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for family. Kids are just hilarious. They're getting Kaylin. We went over to help uh Jocelyn pick some corn in her field, and man, Kaylin's developed a strong sense of justice, and she was really worried. She was really worried that we were stealing all of Jocelyn's corn, and so she was like, "We can't steal Jocelyn's corn." And I'm like, "Kaylin, we're picking the corn for her. It's fine. We're not. If Jocelyn wants us to take some corn home, that's for her, but she needed help picking this." And okay, well, I'm gonna make sure that we're not stealing this corn. So it's good. It's so good. So I love to see that my kids have this strong sense of justice where it's like, although I am a little bit worried that they think I'm stealing corn. I'm like, Kaylin, have we ever stolen anything ever? Like what? Like obviously we're not gonna steal the corn from Jocelyn. But yeah, so it was funny. So we were confirmed. So anyway, my son was in an orthodontist appointment with Ashley, and so I had Ashley drop me and Kaylin and Ruth off when we were picking corn for Jocelyn or whatever. And so I love their strong sense of justice, and I love the designer bus community the in this area that exists here, that we can all be friends. And tomorrow, by the way, we're having our monthly dinner. So for those that aren't familiar, we have a monthly dinner every single week or every single month where I have a we bought Ashley and I bought a hot dog roller that holds what 36 hot dogs? Holds like 36 hot dogs. We bought a slow cooker setup that has three slow cookers in it that plugs up that you can slow cook and heat things up. And we'll put chili in one, and we'll put a chicken cream cheese and buffalo sauce in one, and then we have another one where we put like nacho cheese and black beans in another one, and then we make homemade cornbread with the corn that we make here or and grow here. We make some homemade cornbread and stuff like that. And yeah, and Ashley and I enjoy doing it. We love doing it, and we pay for it. So no one pays us to do it. So we run this thing. So once again, we try to run an anti-priestcraft operation where we try we're spending money. we're we're like, hey, let's meet together and let's have some fun food and we'll pay for it all. So yeah, and we love it. And it's so much fun because there's lots of families that have kids, and it's a great environment. And Tracy has started recently. I don't know if she did it for this one. Uh-oh. She's been giving us a spiritual thought or question, not really thought, a question. And like, what's a case this week that a month that Jesus has helped us endure something like that. And then we'll eat dinner, we'll have the kids will play, and then when the kids are playing, the adults will just be talking. And then Tracy will just be like, so hey guys, how about that question that I asked? And then we'll all just talk about that question about like something that Jesus helped us endure or whatever, and then we'll talk about it. And then yeah, and then what we'll do is if other people have stuff they brought for the group, so like Jocelyn is the bread lady, fantastic. Bread cooker these days. Sometimes she'll bring like a loaf of bread for everyone, so everyone will take a loaf of bread from Jocelyn when they leave. And so yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and my kids really enjoy it. So we do that once a month, and it's been very fun. So we're actually doing that tomorrow. So yeah, those are the family updates. We love the Designer Bust community. We love the community. We love being able to do service for each other. And so yeah, no, it's great. It's great. So yeah, that's about it for the family updates there for 2026. Great little pocket of Saints here. Great little pocket of Saints here. Project updates, like I've said, and where I went into with the Priestcraft Cabal thing, this is the time to write all your journals. This is the time to compile stuff. Your priesthood line of authority. Maybe get an extra copy of your patriarchal blessing if you can. It's time to take your record keeping seriously. Get your golden plates together. I've been producing my music as well. Suno's been up last. I wrote all these songs throughout my life, and they kind of are a part of my journal where it was like part of my experience. And if I write something down, it makes it easier for me to cope with and deal with it, even if you don't like even if like like you're not doing everything in the song or whatever. I don't know if that makes sense, but basically it's like if you can wrestle with emotions or things going on, sometimes it would be easier if like I put it in a poetry or something like that. It's a bit easier for me. And so I had it all the way from the very first song that I wrote for Ashley at 16, and all the way up to like the like when I actually played an instrument, and I sang to Ashley when I asked her to marry me at the lake where we met, and then I baptized her at that lake. So we actually it was it that day. So I think I baptized Ashley pretty recently, like that day or the day before, and then that night I sang the song to her on the dock, and and then I tricked her into marrying me. But yeah, so tricked her into marrying me. So yeah, I had this hat and I strapped it down to the seat on my dock, and I put the ring underneath the hat, and so then I sang this song to her, and then I was like, "Oh, okay, we got to go in the we got to go inside. I got something else I want to show you." And then I was like, "Oh, wait, but I forgot my hat. Can you go grab it for me?" And she was like, "What?" She didn't say this. She was like, "That's weird. Why can't you just grab his own hat?" So then she went over there and she picked up the hat, and the ring was under it, and I asked her to marry me. And yeah, but I wrote all those songs. So like it's fun with Suno because now I can have all these songs that I had written, I'd already written, and kind of put them into song form, which has been fascinating because it's like it's been able to for me to be able to create a journal of basically my life. Basically like well, basically how I'm working it is like three periods of my life, or it's like this period of like, growing up and finding Ashley, dating her and marrying her, this period of like trials, tribulations that I kind of went through. And then like I had this last period of my life, which has basically been my God run, where it's basically like all religious stuff. And so I've got to produce some fun songs. Most of the songs I just share with the group are the obviously the religious ones, with the like the Joseph's Boys songs and stuff like that. But it's been fun. People need to take that stuff seriously. Like basically, that's why I'm sharing it. Take your journals and these things seriously. They're important, and the more you do this, the more you can kind of create lasting important things for your kids, so they can, maybe if something bad happens to you or whatever, they can really get to know you and what you went through and stuff like that. So been having fun with the music. The books, we're still really focused on the Joseph's Boys, finishing that book up in the printable form. Obviously, the quote unquote book, School of Joseph's Boys, has been around for a while, but now we're getting it ready and finished for an actual print so that people can actually have it. I think a lot of people are really confused with the School of Joseph's Boys. They don't really understand what it is, and the fact that it's a book. Basically, it's a book. It's a collection of stuff, and so that's what I've been working on now. Hopefully, that'll be done by this general conference. It's going to have an awesome section in it for all the beautiful Joseph's Boys that have friends that I've made through the last 6 years that I'm just so glad to have. It's the book is dedicated to them, and if they'll allow me, I'm going to put all their names in the front of that book. If you don't want your name in there, just let me know and I'll remove it, right, for privacy or whatever. But I'm just really stoked that we still have friendships and that they're still on the path and they still are striving to be like Jesus and keep the commandments and be loyal, faithful members of the Church of Jesus Christ, Latter-day Saints, and so forth. And so, and then there's also going to be in part of that dedication, a dedication to those that we lost along the way. Um, for whatever reason, and their names will be in that side too. So that book hopefully will be done by this conference. I'm going to be trying to be, like I said, very, very careful. Hopefully, I've tried to be very careful in this one too. I'm going to be very careful in the next couple months leading up to conference when I'm doing those videos, because I just don't want to have any more misconceptions or get myself in trouble especially before I move to Home Lake. I just got to keep this very safe. So if there are anything or is anything like that I say that people think, oh, please just say something in the chat if you're around, and save me, okay, from people assuming things that just aren't true. So that's going to be a big one that I'm going to hopefully get done. I will get done. We will get that one done by this conference. And at that point in time, we're going to reevaluate and see where we're at and see where we're going to go from there. And I hopefully conference itself will be a little bit of an indication or a little bit of a help on what the next 6 months will look like or not look like, um, based off of that. Um, so hopefully that makes sense. Does anybody have any questions? Is there anybody here with any questions? No, I think that's it. So anyway, that's it. That's August 2026. Everyone feel okay about that? Got that journal entry out of the way. That's where we are. Did I miss anything? Any questions, Ash? No? We good? What? Oh, somebody had a question at the very beginning. Oh, why do you think that the slaves rising against their masters happens in Europe first versus happening in North America? Hmm, it's a good question. Why do we think that it's going to happen? I uh that's a good question. I think I might have said that. I think that the pressure is that a doctrinal thing? No. 100% not doctrinal. That's my opinion. I think it's going to happen over there first. But I know doctrinally, we know doctrinally that it's going to happen within the Gentiles, right? So we know it's going to happen in the Gentiles. Why Europe versus America first? Um, I think that the reason I am feeling that way is currently is because the pressure with hundreds of thousands of military age men coming in and just the economy of Europe is collapsing more quickly than America that I see that happening. I see that happening before there's a civil war in the United States. Um, could that happen at the same time, or could America have the slaves rising against masters here um, in this Gentile country at the same time or before? Yeah, it could. My personal gut and just seeing things, I feel like Europe is closer to being a powder keg. It's closer to being the fulfillment to that. Um, could totally be wrong on that though. What we do know is that it's definitely going to happen within the Gentile um, sphere, whatever that word is I'm looking for. It's gonna occur in, what is it, nanosphere? What's that word? It's gonna happen in the Gentile bubble. I can second. You know when you try to spell a word and you can't spell it, and then eventually you're just like, bubble. I can spell bubble. That's a smaller world word. My neighbor, N-E-G-N-E, the person who lives next to me. Yeah, that's basically what I just did there. The nanosphere. I don't know what it's called. It's the bubble of the Gentiles is going to occur. It's going to occur with the Gentiles, and so I think Europe seems to be the place to go, and it also seems to be the place where they're trying to make it go off. Seems to be the masters that are disciplined and ready for war. Sure, seem to be wanting to poke Europe into actually exploding. So and also, I guess my other gut feeling is that it seems like, I don't know, it just seems like every world war starts over there. So maybe that's just history bias. It just seems like World War One, World War Two, all seems to seem to be starting over there. So it'd be nice. Maybe it'd be nice if America took this one instead of Germany, right? It'd be nice. Let's get one. Let's let's get one for the home team over here, right? Let's get one for us, right? Oh, anyway, that's that'd be good. Anyway, oh hey Matt, what's the redemption of Zion? Great question, Matt. Great question for us pudgy priesthood holders. Great question for us pudgy priesthood holders that are just trying to get by, right? Me. By the way, for the people who don't know, Matt has a record of almost exclusively and entirely asking what's the redemption of Zion, as well as making fun of himself for being pudgy. And it's like, it's okay, Matt. Calm down. I'm pudgy too. We're all it's calm down. Calm down. You're not as bad as you think you are. So anyway, so Matt's always like, I'm such a fat loser. And it's like, Matt, stop being so hard on yourself. Please, for the love of Matt, calm down. You're a good guy. Stop. It's not a big deal. Calm down. But anyway, but we're talking about ourselves here, folks. We're talking about ourselves. It's calm down. It's us. We're talking about us. All right. All right. I think that's it. That's where we're at, folks. We love you. God bless. Godspeed. Keep the faith. We love you. Well, what day is it? Wow. It's not Three Brothers next. What the heck? I guess we're gonna be trying to do a School of Joseph's Boys on Sunday. So we'll try to do that on Sunday. And yeah, that next one is, what is it? We get consecration. Oh, patriarchal order. So the next week is patriarchal. This Sunday is gonna be patriarchal order, and then the next one after that is the Church of the Firstborn calling election made sure, second come first. So that's what we got. All right, we love you. Love you, Matt. Love you, Zion or Bust. We'll talk to you again really soon. Okay. God bless. Godspeed. Keep the faith. Happy 2026. Woo! Three dabs to the three brothers. Obviously, I better do that on the way out.